Everybody, we've got some amazing guests joining us here. They're all Hollywood veterans. They're extraordinary at what they do, and we are so honored to have them here as we celebrate and remember somebody very special in all of our lives and in your life as well. The incomparable, the legendary game show host, radio personality, DJ, and one of a kind, a sweetheart of a guy, Wink Martindale, who we just lost last week, and it is fresh on the minds of these fine folks who know Wink, who've worked with Wink as well. You may remember Wink was a wonderful guest here on the Jim Masters show with his lovely wife, the incomparable Sandra, dancer, manager, and love of his life. We had a wonderful conversation that went on for a good long time, and we had an absolutely epic conversation, and they're two beautiful people. I want to welcome folks who make the magic. These are folks who've made a lot of television. You've heard them, you've seen them, or you've seen their product. We have Ernie DeMassa, who is one of the incredible television producers extraordinaire, joining us here. He's been with us on a couple of the tribute shows, but also as a singular guest as well. Ernie, welcome back. We put this together very quickly because we wanted to honor and remember Wink. Thank you so very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here again.
Great to be with you, Jim.
Dean, you've had an opportunity to work with Wink in a very, very special way as announcer and so much more. Dean Goss, this is his very first time here on the Jim Masters show, and I'm sure not the last. Dean, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
And where is everybody located? Dean, where are you right now?
I'm in the friendly hills of Playmates.
Very nice. And Ernie, you are?
I'm in Newport Beach, California.
Newport. Wesley is here. Wesley Hyde is back on the show. He's been a wonderful guest several times on our show. He's a brilliant writer, author, extraordinary person because he really digs in deep. He's a pop culture historian and expert. And we did a wonderful show celebrating the 50th anniversary of Wheel of Fortune. And that was a very, very well-received show, that episode. A lot of viewers watching around the world loving it. And hopefully a lot of the books went, Wesley.
I think so. I haven't gotten the statement from my publisher yet. But
you're still waiting for that.
yeah, I'm still waiting, but I've heard some very good things from a lot of people about the show. So thanks for having me here again. I'm very honored.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Roger Neal, a legend in the business, a publicist extraordinaire. He knows everybody. He works with everybody. They all love him. You may recall he was with us when we did that very special Bob Barker tribute, and Wink Martindale was a part of that as well. If you didn't see that episode, be sure and check that out. Roger is a great friend of our show. A lot of wonderful guests have come through him, but he's just a big supporter of things that he believes in. Roger, welcome to the show.
Jim, thanks for having me. Be with you.
You worked with Wink. You represented Wink Martindale for a number of years, didn't you?
I did. I was I just seem to have been the publicist for a lot of legends. I enjoy that. Wink handled him back in the 80s. And he was producing a game show called Second Honeymoon, and there was a second game show in Canada. So I did all the publicity for him for that and for those game shows. And we represented him for some years, and then he just remained a friend over all of these years, almost 40 years. He and Sandy, we just loved their family to me. And whenever I would ask Wink, hey, Wink, would you? And he wouldn't even wait to hear what I had to say. He would just say yes. What day and time, and he was always available. He was great. I loved Wink, and Sandy is they're just great people. I think Wink, I think of his fabulous bright jackets and his great smile, and that's just for him. And the man you saw on TV is the man you got when you were one-on-one with him, and he was just a great, just an icon. Is all I can say.
Absolutely. He just had the perfect personality for everything he did. He made everybody feel so welcome, and viewers absolutely loved him. And as a broadcast guy myself and a television host, radio all these years, I've always admired his way, his persona, way he treated people he worked with, but the viewers as well as the contestants and all the other work that he did, of course, having interviewed Elvis Presley, which is another incredible thing he did. We'll talk about some of them as well. Another broadcast veteran that is here. He's always got that fabulous smile. Randy West is back. Price
Thank you, Jim.
right, price is this, price is that. He's done it all. His voice is omnipresent. He's an East Coast kid, New York kid originally, who made good out in Hollywood. He's been a wonderful friend of our show several times, singular guest. He's been with us for Bob Barker and several other tributes. Wanted to hop on for Wink, and we love you for doing that, Randy. Thanks for joining us once again.
Thank you for the invitation, Jim. You know, Wink, I had to start thinking about the relationship. We met in 1981. We worked together. He was almost like a newlywed with Sandy at the time. So that's 44 years ago. So a lot of TV and radio over those years, and we can talk about it. But I couldn't have enjoyed working with anyone as much as I did Wink, and he was very generous to me in our dealings over the years. We could talk about it as we go.
Absolutely. And Shelley Herman is here, and she is a brilliant writer, author extraordinaire, very immersed in the world of television, like all of us are. Shelley, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you so much, and it's good to see so many friends here. And if somebody hasn't said it, I'll say it. Thank you for doing this for Sandy and for Wink.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. The pleasure is all mine. And somebody that's also a wonderful friend of our show. She is a hoot, a holler. She's a class act. She's a legend. She's extraordinary. Yes, my mother is coming on. No, Ruta Lee. The wonderful Ruta.
I'm old enough to be your mother, honey. It's fine.
Ruta Lee would come here if it was a blizzard or tornado or an earthquake. She would not miss it. She is a trooper, and that's why everybody loves Ruta Lee. It is a wonderful thing to have you with us once again, Ruta.
So sweet of you to say thank you, and thank you for sharing your wonderful audience with us. We have some things to talk about when it comes to wonderful, wonderful man that just had the greatest smile in the business. His smile would light up a room the minute he walked in. And I always said he had the best teeth in show business, the prettiest teeth in the world.
He really did. We had mentioned, to Sandy that we were doing this, and of course, we send all of us send our love to his lovely wife, Sandra. She's a wonderful person, and there's a fabulous early shot of them too, and. Of course, many years friendships with Elvis and the Presleys, and there you go right there with Priscilla, and just absolutely beautiful. Some wonderful photos that our dear friends have sent, and there's some videos as well. I do want to let the viewers know that there's a couple of folks that did want to join us, but one of them is on a plane right now, and that is Mark Summers, of course, legendary game show host. And this actually is a great shot because you can see this on YouTube, Wink's Vault, which is an amazing thing, going back and looking at all the vintage clips of shows and series and specials and unique things. And there's a young Mark right there with Wink. And so he wanted to be here as well. And also Tom Bergeron, too. We wanted to have Tom. Hopefully Tom will be back as a singular guest as well. Tom is with the family right now for the holidays. And also we wanted to acknowledge Adam Dedef. He's a wonderful writer and a fantastic pop culture historian, game show historian. And there he is with Wink. And he's very immersed in a big deadline and a project right now. So he wanted to be here as well. And somebody else that also wanted to be here, Glenn Scarpelli, the wonderful actor Glenn Scarpelli, who's been with us many, many times, is a wonderful friend. And he had these words he wanted to share with all of our viewers and all of our guests.
Hey, Jim and everyone at the Jim Masters Show. Glenn Scarpelli here. And I just want to say thank you so much for honoring Wink the way you're doing tonight. I'm sorry that I can't be there live with you, but I'm coming on behalf of me and John today on video here. People think that I knew Wink from back in my day, but the truth is I know Wink and Sandy through my husband, John Ritchie Jr. And in many ways, I've often felt like Sandy and Wink were in-laws of sorts with me because they were family to John. And then they became family to me. And it's a friendship that I treasure and will always treasure. Wink was just so wonderful. I was just thinking before I got here on camera, I was just thinking about some of the moments I had with him just in my own experience with John. And, people ask me, was he the same type of guy on camera and off camera? And I'd say there was a lot of Wink that he brought to his work. Of course, you saw the real Wink on camera. So there was that smooth voice, that debonair quality, that charismatic personality, the funny person that he certainly brought to the shows that he hosted and produced. But there was also this other side of Wink that I got to know through our friendship, which was one of, great humility and also sincerity and kindness and generosity that was a little more subdued than what, you basically saw on camera. One moment that actually pops in my head that I think of as one of my favorite moments with Wink and Sandy was John and I visited them in the desert not too long ago. This was probably about 2 years ago. And we just went down to spend some time with them in their home in the desert. And we were all sitting around their kitchen table having martinis. We love sharing martinis with Wink. He loved his martinis. So do we. So we had a wonderful time just kind of, shooting the you-know-what and talking about life. And John and I were sharing some challenges that we were having. And Wink really just shed such beautiful light for us. Because I think when you've lived as long as he's lived, you really do attract wisdom. And you really do have a deeper sense of what life is about. He was also a very spiritual man. And he really helped us that day. And I just saw a different side of Wink Martindale that was, like I said, wise and educated and came from a true heart space and really wanted to take us under his wing and share his perspective. And it really, really helped us. Dare I say, heal us in a way. John's dream came true with this relationship with Wink because Wink was his idol growing up. Wink Martindale. Like, he doesn't get better than Wink Martindale. And then he got to have this wonderful personal relationship with him and got to become family. And we're just so happy that you are, honoring him tonight as part of our family. And I know we feel a family kinship to everyone at the Jim Masters Show. So we just come here with some gratitude. John sends his love too. Sorry he couldn't be here on video today. And I just want to also share that this was Wink's last project. And this is Wink's word searches. And this was just released this past year, 2024. You could find this still on Amazon. And it's such a wonderful book. Word search puzzles with a trivia twist. And I've been doing a lot of this week in honor of him and just kind of sitting down and reminiscing with him and talking to him. And I just want to share that too. So if you want to pick one of these up and to honor him, that'd be awesome. And everyone at Wink Martindale Games just says thank you for doing what you guys are doing tonight. We love you, Wink, and we always will.
Thank you to Glenn Scarpelli for taking time to do that. Pretty nice gang, huh?
Very.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful.
Bravo. Rhoda, tell us about your friendship with the incomparable Wink Martindale.
Well, I've known him for, a half a century or more. However, I got to spend personal and private and more fun time since he moved to the desert. I have a home in Palm Springs as well. And so we saw each other there quite often and had suppers together. And I taught him how to make routinis, never mind martinis. Routinis come in great big glasses like this. Fill it with ice, chug-a-lug it with vodka, and then onto a plastic knitting needle or a pickup stick or whatever. Go ahead and skewer anything that's ever been pickled or brined. I'm talking about dilly beans, corn, little pepperoncinis, cauliflower, olives, onions, anything. Make a shish kebab, stick it in the glass, and it's a one-drink martini and a one-drink party.
Very nice. We should have been serving that to all of the guests tonight.
We should have. Routinis, they're really great.
That's it. Randy, you're so good at honoring and celebrating our industry constantly, daily, the things you come up with, the archival. And I told you that once privately. I said, I just love the stuff that you dig up and share. And I know that the loss of somebody like Wink Martindale hits home for all of us, and for you as well, as a broadcast guy through and through, and loving all of these talents and working with these folks as well. Tell us about the importance of Wink Martindale in your life.
Well, I first met Wink when we were doing a syndicated radio program, 2020 Music World, 20 old hits, 20 new hits, features, and we were looking to cast it. And I said Wink Martindale, and the people I was with in a radio corporation was like, well, he's a game show host. I said, wait a minute. The guy was on radio long before any of that. Hometown in Tennessee, WHBQ Memphis, a handful of radio stations in Los Angeles. He was a radio broadcaster before he was television. So we brought him in, and I was thrilled to be able to work with him on that show. And over the years, our paths have crossed, but he gave me a tremendous opportunity in the early 90s. I want to say it's about 92 or 3, when he brought Trivial Pursuit to the air. And he hired me to do the audience warm-up and the announce. And Trivial Pursuit begat several other series, Boggle, Jumble, Shuffle. And it was a thrill to work with him because of his talent, which really I've had a long time to think about. Wink grew up middle America, Bible Belt, Tennessee, old school heartland values. And he brought with him a simpatico for the common folk. He wasn't I know better than you. He wasn't a superstar. There was no ego involved. He really was able to bring that natural affinity for people to the microphone and camera. And even more so in radio, because it's a one-on-one thing. People are listening to you in their car, in their shower, or whatever. Television, you're splitting your attention between the home audience, the contestants, of course, and the studio audience. So it's not as intimate, but his ability to cut right through the electronics, through the equipment, and make a personal connection with people on the other side of the radio or television was truly phenomenal. He had that sense of he's one of us, and his intimacy and his appreciation for people came through on the air. He had a great gift besides his upbringing. He had a true love of people. And I'm telling you, having worked with Wink and Bob Barker and Bob Eubanks, and the names just spin in my head, dozens of these guys, Wink had a love for the interviewees, the contestants, the folks that he worked with, unlike any of the others, truly. The television camera is like an X-ray machine. If you are upset with a contestant because they're taking too long with an answer, or they've derailed the action that you're trying to bring to fruition, same with an interview subject, you may be rolling your eyes in your head, but it shows on your face. And I've seen guys who can tap their toes without it coming to their face. They're banging their foot on the ground. Come on, give me an answer. Let's move the show forward. You're derailing my energy here. But Wink, I don't even think he felt that. Certainly didn't express it physically from head to toe. There was no reading it. So I think it was his upbringing and his true appreciation for people. He liked people, and you really can't fake that on television. And that's the great gift that I think he brought. And as far as working with him, couldn't have been more generous with financially or with his praise or his friendship. We would lunch together. I didn't lunch with Bob Barker. I didn't lunch with some of the other folks. But Wink, come on, Randy, let's talk. And we could talk about radio endlessly. He was a true broadcaster and one of the very, very best we'll ever have, because his generation, unfortunately, is leaving us. Those early television hosts, he was one of the last of them. And I don't think they make them like that anymore. And I hate to sound like an old fogey, but he brought an energy and a style with him that goes back in time and is classic and timeless. So I'm just a better person in all regards from what I learned working with him and socializing with Wink. A truly great man. And I thank you for the opportunity to have a chance to express some of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you actually have been generous enough to put together a really nice collection of photos. And while we're chatting and you're sharing those deep memories, tell us about some of these wonderful photos. There's Ruta Lee and you and Wink and Sandra Martindale there, Randy.
Yes, that was the 4th of July because Ruta's always dressed in the red, white.
I love the bow. Look at the bow.
Yeah, we always know it's 4th of July with Ruta. And I don't remember exactly the locale for this, but it was just one of so many times we were together. And look at the smiles. I mean, look at Sandy.
Yeah.
You could just see the love and the appreciation for friendship and good times. And this was one of many. And there he is with his dance party show, which I believe was WHBQ TV in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he did a dance party show once he was in LA. And that's the great shot of Elvis Presley, 1956, on television with Wink. Wink, that show was before his television station had videotape. So there was no way to save the interview with Elvis. And Wink had the brilliant idea of hiring a wedding photographer who normally took stills and, film 16 millimeter of people's weddings, and brought him in because that would be the only record. There was no videotape. And it was this very smart thing because you could watch that interview now and see a side of Elvis that's, pre-stardom, and Wink's affinity for dealing with him. The two of them really hit it off. And there's the beginning of those teeth, huh? Soupy Sales.
He was a darling guy.
Yeah. Way back.
Got to interview him on a radio station here on the East Coast, and boy, was he a riot. He had the whole station in stitches. It was like unbelievable. He was really.
Now this is great. This is 50 years of game shows. In case you're not good at rebus solving, this was at the Sportsman's Lodge, and if you can name all these guys, you've got a great memory. I was honored to get down on my hands and knees because they're all bigger names than I am. So that's me kneeling before the gods of television. God, Charlie O'Donnell on the left. Oh, but you're going to help me with some of these folks. Oh, my God. Well, of course, I'm going to skip two, and they'll come back to me in a moment. But Ralph Edwards, who invented This Is Your Life.
Well, you've got Peter
Kennedy.
Marshall and Alex Trebek. And, of
Yes,
course,
on the right-hand side, Bill Armstrong. Going backwards, Bill Armstrong, Peter Marshall, Alex Trebek, Ed McMahon, Betty White, Bob Eubanks, Jack Nars, Tom Kennedy, Ralph Edwards, Jack Smith, and there's one more that'll come to me in a moment, and on the far left, Charlie O'Donnell.
Yes.
And I'm sad to say, look at him over now, only Bob Eubanks remains, and myself. Thankfully, I'm in this picture.
Yeah. That's a great one.
Yeah, and Wink and everybody remember? Come on, you got to help me with this. You know who that is.
Jeff Edwards.
Jeff
There
Edwards.
you go. Jeff Edwards. They worked together on KMPC radio. And that was the station of the stars, as they called it, because folks came from the KMPC radio station, which was owned by the great cowboy Gene Autry. Many of them fed television game show hosting. A lot of the guys came from there. And these two were great friends. I never knew it when I first met Wink, but he and Alex were good buddies going way back. So these are just some of the random photos that I contributed.
Can you imagine the stories Wink and Alex Trebek are saying right now up in heaven?
Oh,
Boy.
yes.
And I brought you this one, the Mars Patrol, which was his kids' show at WHBQ. You know, they would latch them into old airline seats taken out of an airplane. The kids would be latched in, and then they blast off for Mars. And Wink wore that wacky outfit. And there really was no spaceship, but they managed to mock up one for this photo. And yeah, well, this was my birthday. Should I tell you what year it was? God, I'm old. Wink, and that's Steve Ryan's wife, Kathy, on the far left, with Wink. Kathy and Steve Ryan's daughter, who I believe is also Kathy, which confuses the hell out of me, and myself, and Sandy, and Steve Resnick, who worked with Wink in the radio days because Steve was a record promoter. This was one of my birthday parties that Sandy was at, along with Shelley Herman, who's with us today, was at that party, many other great folks. Yeah, and Wink and I have done all sorts of wacky interviews for various radio stations and various events. And this was at Steve Resnick's house. It was an annual party that we have. And Peter, you know, everybody loved Wink, and he's you know, ubiquitous when it came to hanging with these great celebrities that we have known and loved. And it just breaks my heart to think that we're down to, you know, so few. And there's a picture with High Rollers, which is for Ruta, and with Bob. Now, these two didn't get along all their whole lives together. There were a couple of years there where they weren't best of friends, but that's all been buried. And if you want me to talk about it later, we can. But Bob Eubanks and Wink Martindale, and myself at the Trivial Pursuit podium with Wink. Yeah, I look better now than I did then. Wink was timelessly handsome. And there's the hand behind the ear like Gary Owens always did. Hello, how silly of you to talk about me. With Casey Kasem, counting them down, Gary. And
that's Bob Bowden there, yeah.
Yeah, so you have...
He's going to be joining us too. Tom Kennedy,
yeah.
Peter Marshall, Wink,
yeah.
and
yeah.
some great...
Beverly Pomerantz on the left.
Oh, that's right.
Testing coordinator for a lot of the shows.
Exactly. Now, Claudia is here. Claudia Kagan, of course, extraordinary producer, maker of lots of great television. We're so happy she is joining Shelley. They are together. They're a tag team. Hi, Claudia.
Hello, how are you?
It's good to see you. Claudia has been a wonderful guest on our show several times. We did an epic conversation together on a singular episode, but she's been here on some of the tribute episodes as well. And really a treat to have you here, Claudia. Thanks so much for, you know, getting in the car and running over to Shelley's.
We are the Valley Girls after all.
Right. You sent this fabulous photo, Claudia.
Isn't it great? I have it with me too.
What was this event?
Well, when I was I don't even remember my title. I think I was the coordinating producer or senior producer. Every show has a different title for the same job. But we decided to do Game Show Week on Squares. That was the most recent revival of Squares before Drew Barrymore. And the votes are still coming in. I know they got renewed, and that's wonderful. But the spirit of our show was one where we would have Game Show Week. And this was in 2002. And there are the magnificent men and women of Game Show World. And there is Winker in the beautiful royal blue sport jacket. In between Jim Lang and Chuck Woolery, next to Kathy Griffin and Jimmy Walker and Marty Mull, who we lost. Bob Eubanks, and on the bottom in the beautiful pink jacket was Rod Roddy. And Randy has told me that Rod was very ill that day. He had a battle with cancer, I believe, at the end of his life, but he did a magnificent job. And Carol Merrill, who came into LA from Australia, and dear Peter Marshall. I met Peter's daughter on the first show I ever worked on in television, which was called Photoplay in 1986. Suzanne, a wonderful girl. And Tom Bergeron is in that picture. and my favorite booking of the day, which was Brett and Charles Nelson Riley.
Oh yeah.
Because that was like, I couldn't even speak. I really couldn't even speak. And it was magnificent, and all the dreams came true. I must give credit where credit is due. Another angel above us is Fred Westbrook.
Yes.
Because I used to work with Fred a lot. Fred was an agent who represented the rainbow of game show celebrities. And when I told him that we had this project, he just sharpened his pencil and he said, let's just do this. And he basically represented just about all the people, or at least he knew how to find Carol Merrill in Australia. You know, it was that kind of thing. And he was such a dear soul, and I do miss him. But it was a wonderful time. And the highlight of that week was with all of those wonderful game show icons in the boxes. Tommy Bergeron and Peter switch spaces during the week, and Peter hosted the show and Tom sat in a center square. And with no hesitation, when Tom called on him to come over and host the show, he played a little fun thing like, no, I don't want to do it. But then he said, oh, okay, I'll do it. And then he came over to his spot in between the two contestants and without hesitation started the introduction of the game. You know, circle gets the square and across and down. He never fumbled once, and he was brilliant the whole time. And it was kind of a weepy moment for all of us, because now I'm just old, but then I was less old. So that was like my whole youth in those boxes. And it was extraordinary. Yeah. Aren't they just swell? They're my little mascots. And that's one of the highlights of my booking career, to be able to do this and to do this for the people. And the executive producers of Hollywood Squares at the time were Henry Winkler, who knows a little bit about being an icon, and Michael Levitt, who's gone on to, you know, produce major events and TV shows. And it was interesting for those of you who will understand this. We followed Whoopi's run on Squares, which was wonderful. But they were trying to go for the contemporary stars on their version. And when Henry and Michael and I got together, we agreed that we wanted to pay tribute to great Hollywood. So we had Charo on a lot because she's great TV. And I think that you could see that in the new version with all the hip and cool celebrities that they have on the show. It's a little more blue and it's a little more uninteresting. So that was my Wink Martindale moment. He was charming and handsome and an iconic game show host.
And you sent along a clip too from Squares, right? Did you want to preface that?
Well, this is a clip from I believe it's the clip from when Peter and Tommy switched places. Wonderful.
Fantastic. We'll show that, and then we'll have Ernie next, because Ernie has a hard out. So we'll show this, and then we'll get Ernie on. All right. Take a look at this, gang, courtesy of Claudia.
When I got the word that Peter Marshall, the original master of the Hollywood Squares, was going to be our center square for a week, I thought, what a wasted opportunity if we just let him sit cozily in the center square. So I asked Peter a question, which I'll recreate for you now. Peter, you ready to retake the podium?
No, I'm not. Okay, what the hey?
Yeah? Yeah, why not? Stay tuned. Peter Marshall back as host of Hollywood Squares.
All right, my friend. Thank you. Thanks, John. All righty.
the celebrity capital of the world. It's Hollywood Squares Game Show Week, starring Bob Eubanks, Jim Lang, Wink Martindale, Chuck Woolery, Charles Nelson Riley, and Brett Summers, Jimmy Walker, Kathy Griffin, Martin Mull, and today's Center Square, Tom Bergeron. I am Ron Buddy, and here is today's host, the master of the Hollywood Squares, Peter Marshall.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And welcome to the Hollywood Squares. Hello, stars.
Hello, Peter.
Good to see each and every one of you. Don't touch that dial. This is not the Game Show Network. No. It's me after 102 years. I'd like to meet our current champion. This is it's Diana.
That's correct.
What's your last name?
Dale.
And you, I saw you. I was in the center square. I watched you in a car yesterday.
Yes, I did.
We'll find out a little more about Diana a little later on. We're meeting a new challenger here. I'm Mr. X. It's a gentleman from El Cajon, California. Let's say hello to Steve. Is it polite?
Yes, sir.
Steve, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Object for the players to get 3 stars in a row, either across them and down diagonally. It's up to them to figure out the stars, give you a correct answer, make one up. That's so they get the squares. A game that's worth $1,000. Whoa! Times have changed. You are the challenger. Hey, good luck to both of you. I want you to pick a star. Good luck.
Tom Bergeron, please.
Right there, yeah.
Game face on here, Peter.
I thought you looked familiar.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
According to Reuters.
Reuters.
You know Reuters.
Reuters, sure. Yeah.
If a dog uses a high-pitched, unevenly placed bark, what is it telling you?
That would tell you that Bob Barker is at the front door with a pair of clippers, Peter. All right. Wink's barking at me. Oh God. No, that's actually that's a warning bark. That's a stay away.
Stay away bark.
I agree.
No, it wants to play. Yeah, it wants to play. A break for our champion here. So put a circle there, and Diane chance for 2 in a row here.
Martin Mull, please.
Mr. Mull.
Hi, Peter. It's been a while.
And a survey by the National Safety Council. Are you more likely to die from choking, drowning, or poisoning?
I think so.
So we need one or
At
the
least
other.
that's what I tell myself every time I light up.
I would think probably choking.
Choking.
I'll agree.
Nope, it's poisoning, then drowning. Choking came in third, paid $280. Okay, a break for you. Put it next there. Let's move
Kathy
on.
Griffin, please.
Kathy, my darling Kathy. Here we go. This is very important here. Now listen carefully.
Okay.
Why can't historians locate anything actually dated 1 BC?
Because that was so 2,003 years ago. Over. All right, I would say historians can't locate that because it's stuff that's eroded by now.
I disagree.
Good for you. It's because no one knew who Christ was. How could they have dated 1 BC? So we put an X there and over here to our champion. Go ahead, Diana, for the start.
Wink Martindale for the block.
And my buddy, the Winker. The Winker, here we go. What are you if you're a virtue, a throne, or a seraphim?
Rod Roddy in a blue sequin coat.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Rod.
He's not a virtue.
Now, I happen to know this one, and I won't go into great detail, but the answer is simply a B, a B-double-E, a B.
A B.
I disagree.
You would be, and you are, darling, an angel.
How could you disagree
Yes,
with
okay,
me?
put a circle there. Over to you, my friend.
Chuck Woolery for the block.
Hey, Chuck. My buddy. What were Disneyland employees banned from wearing while on the job until March of 2000?
I happen to know this.
Good.
All Disneyland employees, under Michael Eisner's authority,
right,
could not wear. There was a belt that had Mickey Mouse written on it. He had to wear the belt that had Mickey Mouse's face on it. They didn't want anything because they wanted the children to see it.
I disagree.
What do you think
it was? A terrible bluff. What? It was absolutely pathetic.
No. You know what it was? No, it's kind of interesting. It's mustaches, beard, sideburns, goatees, facial hair. You got the block. All right, over to you, dear. There you go. Go ahead, Diane.
Bob Eubanks, please.
Thank you, Diane. Peter.
Now listen. We've got.
I'll bet you, Peter, is this the first time you've ever done this show with long pants on?
You may be right.
I know,
with any pants on.
I'll tell you, Peter used to wear tennis shorts.
Yes, I did.
And then suits on the top.
My legs were awfully cute in those days.
Oh, yeah. I know. We're glad you have long pants on.
FirstScience.com says about 60% of all American babies are named after what?
After they're born. No, named after famous people.
I disagree.
No, they're named after relatives who could be famous people.
Yeah.
We couldn't accept that. You were on the board. We have a commercial word. We're going to be right back after this. Good plan. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Thanks for sending that, Claudia. Really appreciate
Thank
that.
you for having those clips.
To have those clips as well. Ernie, tell us about your relationship and working with the wonderful Wink Martindale.
Well, the interesting thing about my relationship with Wink was that it was social 40 years before we ever worked together. And it was kind of strange because Sandy used to answer Bob Eubank's telephone. And she was the secretary in the Eubanks office. And I was at the time producing the Mike Douglas show, and I would call out to Bob Eubanks, who was doing many incredible productions at the time. And Sandy would talk to me on the phone, and we got to be friends. And she had told me that she had met him. And then a few years later, at King World, where we bought the rights to Hollywood Squares out of the bankruptcy from the Peter Quigley turning it over to Orion, we got it at King World, and I started to talk to Wink and Sandy about maybe reviving Hollywood Squares with Peter. And Michael King bought a house in a place called Sierra Retreat, which is in Malibu. And it was an incredible cul-de-sac. If you know the King brothers at all, they had quite a wild reputation. And the cul-de-sac was James Cameron and Linda Hamilton in the first house, George C. Scott and Trish Vanderveer in the second house, Michael and Barbara King in the third house, Sandy and Wink Martindale in the fourth house, and Jill Ireland and Charlie Bronson in the fifth house. So there would be barbecues, and we would go down there for the weekend, and everybody would behave themselves except for one of the King brothers, but you probably know those stories. And one day, Wink called me and Sandy called me, and they said, "We can't take it anymore. We have to move. We just can't live here because people knock on our door at 3 a.m. with a glass of scotch in their hand, or they want to show up and have a party." Or one day we were in bed in the master bedroom, and somebody came in the back door and opened our bedroom door and walked right into the bedroom, and we think we're going to have to move. So they left. They left that environment after about 10 or 15 years. And a few years later, Peter Marshall called me up one day and he said, "You've never worked with Wink, have you?" And I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "No, Peter was 90 at the time." He said, "Well, Wink and I want to do a show, so we want to take you to lunch." And I said, "Okay." So Wink and Peter and I all went to lunch, and they said, "You're the producer. Come up with something for us to do." So somebody who's been mentioned a little earlier in this little tribute here, Fred Westbrook, whose real name was Wasbrook, by the way, W-O-S, not W-E-S. He changed it because he thought nobody would ever be able to pronounce Wasbrook, so he changed it to Westbrook. And he had written a terrific game show Bible. If you get a chance to go on Amazon, Wink is in it, Peter's in it, all the great game show hosts are in it. We called him up and we said, "We need to come up with something. Let's put an idea together." He said, "Well, you know, the Native Americans are looking for something to do." He said, "Why don't we create the Game Show Host Club and do like a special host club for Indian casinos?" So we went out and met with the San Manuel, now the Yamava, and Fred put together Wink and Peter and Bob Eubanks and Chuck Woolery. And we created something called the Game Show Host Club, which was a lot of fun. And out of that, I got to know Wink and we got to work together and spend time beyond social time. But out of that, he and I started working with the Hollywood media professionals. And about a year ago, we decided to make a little presentation tape. If you're familiar with the Hollywood media professionals, the organization is more than 67 years old at this point. It was started in 1966 by an incredible group, Edgar Bergen and Ralph Edwards, and a radio host at the time. And Wink did the voiceover and helped me write the script and just did a wonderful job. He was just so easy to work with, such a lovely human being, so much fun socially, but he sure wanted to get away from the King brothers whenever possible.
You actually sent us, you were generous enough to send us a clip from that very, very special occasion with, like you mentioned, Wink being involved in this. Did you want to preface this a little bit, and we'll show a little bit of it?
This is the history of the Hollywood media professionals. It's 7 minutes long. You don't have to show the whole thing, but you can cut it off at any point. But this is what Wink and I wrote and narrated together.
All right, here it is. Take a look, folks, and we'll be back.
The Hollywood media professionals evolved from Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters, originally founded by actor and announcer Art Gilmore, host and producer Ralph Edwards, and comedian Edgar Bergen, all true broadcasting pioneers. In the late 1960s, 500 charter members created the organization with the purpose of honoring and lunching with the amazing list of celebrities you see right here. Luncheons have taken place over the past 60 years and have not only honored these amazing individuals, but also set the goal of serving the history of the entertainment business by creating an historical archive of both audio and video that new generations of young show business pros can use as sort of a platform for the future. Today's membership is made up of talented individuals who've created and performed in some of the most iconic and historic programming and recordings of the past 50 years. The HMP archives contain hundreds of historic scripts, memorabilia, still images, and audio and video highlights. But it's not about being just historians. It's about entertainment. Take a look at some of these highlights from our luncheons over the years.
Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good afternoon to you.
I can't tell you how pleased I am to be here because, well, at 92, you're pleased to be anywhere. Anyway,
I'm truly, truly honored to be here. I'm not good at speaking. I could sing with the cue cards. Because of my age, I'm 53 now. And
I still play. I play senior softball. I don't know if you senior. You got to be over 60. If you hit a double, they let you take a nap. It's really.
Thank you. Boy, I'll tell you something. You promise a person a good piece of fish, you can have your friends show up.
I don't know what to say. This is the most embarrassing, humiliating, wonderful afternoon I've ever spent.
It's so great that you do that, Ernie. That is fantastic.
Yeah, and Wink did a great job doing the script and the narration, and he ends the whole thing by inviting people to come and help us sponsor new events. And I hope we're able to do something in his honor at some point in the future, and looking forward to some wonderful celebration of his life, because he was an amazing guy, always had a smile, always willing to help and jump in and do whatever was needed, and just so easy to work with. But what a lot of people don't know is, beyond being a host, he was a writer, he was a creator, he was a producer. He knew how to direct the show, he knew how to pace the show. He knew the way to keep, civilians that weren't celebrities as contestants engaged. And he was just a wonderful human being. They don't make him like him anymore.
No, and of course, deck of cards was something very, very special, folks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to talk about it for those who aren't familiar with deck of cards?
Randy Wood was the head of Dot Records and thought that Wink would be a great narrator on, found this old song by T. Tyler, I think it was, but Wink did a cover version of it. And the funny part of the whole story is it was a million seller, and he ended up on the Ed Sullivan Show to perform Deck of Cards. And here he is now. If you're the Beatles or any artist who performs, you're expected to know your song. I mean, you go out there and you sing or you deliver whatever it is your act is. Well, Wink shows up in rehearsal and says, "Where's my cue cards?" But Wink, it's your song, and you sold 1 million copies, but Wink hadn't committed it to memory because there was no reason to commit it to memory up until that point. So they scurried some cue cards together for him, and he's got to be one of the few people who ever performed a million-selling record off of cue cards because he had no idea what he was talking. Well, he had no idea what he was talking about, but there was a lot to remember. But I always thought that was so endearing. Where are my cue cards?
That's such a great story. And Roger, you had mentioned at the outset that you've known Wink Martindale for so long, and you were the publicist, you're the representative for him, getting him out there. And what was that like? He's such an affable, genial person. And like Randy said earlier, you know, those hosts of that time who I've always aspired to and I've always enjoyed. Randy and I had conversations about that going away, that the warm, friendly, nice, you can throw anything at that person, even whatever kind of show it is or whatever the scenario is, and they can make that magic. Everything now is very niche. You know, you're here, you're there, you don't go there, you don't do this. Tell us a little bit about that in terms of having the opportunity to rep and work with Wink, Roger.
You know, I got to be in meetings with him when he was developing shows, Second Honeymoon, and there was another show before they ever did the show, and they were doing these shows in Canada, and I watched him select who was going to host those shows, which was very interesting. I always wondered, you know, he's such an iconic game show host, what kind of game show host would he select as a producer? And he actually picked two really good hosts for these two game shows. And I vividly remember Second Honeymoon. It was a Canadian show on television in Canada. But I remember the talks he would have with this game show host. And the guy was very nervous because he had to do this in front of Wink Martindale. We went to Canada for the taping and Wink was there. So, but he made the game show host feel very at ease. And he said, "Hey, you do this show the way you think, you host this the way you think it should be hosted, and I'm just going to be over here watching." So he put the guy at ease, the game show host, and Wink was just very smart. He knew his job and your job too, and he was a brilliant guy. So when we did publicity, I did publicity for him. He was very hands-on in how the press release would be read, how it would be shaped, but the message he wanted to get out. But just a great guy. And like I said before, I produced several shows that he appeared on, and he did Deck of Cards on one of those shows. And Randy knew he did not use cards on that. He had memorized it by that point. So this is early 2000s. So, but Wink was just a brilliant businessman, really smart guy. You know, he's just one of a kind. What can I tell you? There's a few game show hosts that are one of a kind. You'll never be able to replace them, and there'll never be another. Wink fits into that category.
Absolutely, beautifully said.
Jim, I'm going to have to sign off. Sorry,
Ernie. No, absolutely, a real treat that you were able to hop on at the last minute. You know, the tributes. Sometimes we put these together quick, and you know, we've got our A-list of people we want to have with us, and you hopped right on. So thank you very much. And come see us again, my friend. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, whether we're talking about Mike Douglas or whatever it is. It's always a joy.
All right. Well, see you all at the celebration of Wink's life.
That would be wonderful. You be well. Okay, Ernie. Thanks for being with us.
Take care.
You take care now.
All right. Bye.
Shelley, tell us about your thoughts of Wink Martindale, and obviously you've had an opportunity to know and work with a lot of different people over the years. She was also a page and wrote a book about it too, a bestseller, and she was a guest on our show. Tell us your thoughts about Wink Martindale, Shelley.
Well, everybody's touched on little aspects of some of the memories that I was going to share, but I first met Wink when he was at KMPC. And at the time, it seemed like the game show producers were mining KMPC for game show host. We mentioned Jeff Edwards, Gary Owens, Wink. And Gary Owens told me something once, because I worked with him on a show called Breakaway that I wrote. And I said, Gary, you've got enough money. Why are you doing this job where you have to get here at 8 o'clock in the morning to do the show? And he said that he keeps the radio show going just so he can get gigs like the one that I was writing. He said, because every day people would drive to work, they would turn on KMPC, listen to all of the guys on the radio. And he said he got more jobs because of being on the radio than having just been on television. So Wink and Jeff and Gary are really good memories for me, because my cousin worked there at the studio, at the radio station, so I got to hang around there a little bit. But fast forwarding, lost touch with Wink and those guys, and then again our dear friend Fred Wasbrock. I call him Fred Wasbrock.
Yes, we called him Fred Wasbrock, by the way.
Yes.
And that 5 times fast.
And the very first voiceover audition that I did at Fred's office, I was in the session with Wink. And because I'm not kind of a shy girl, I was kind of suggesting things to Wink in the session. I remember so specifically, we were supposed to be jurors, and he said his line, I said his line. I said, maybe we should be harumphing a little bit in between all this. He goes, oh yeah, we'll do harumphs. And so, so that was and I kept thinking, gosh, my first voiceover audition, and I'm with Wink. It was so cool. I remember going to a lot of game show run-throughs that he did. He used to have offices in Glendale. And I remember seeing him, and he was wearing like dad jeans. And I thought like, oh my God, Wink Martindale's in dad jeans, because he's always so dapper whenever he would go out anywhere. But he and his partner, Bill, came up with a lot of really good ideas. I always thought Wink was ahead of his time on a lot of these ideas. Like the bumper stumpers, he would, figuring out when custom license plates started becoming a thing in the 70s.
To guess.
Yeah, you had to guess what they were. It was that was one of his shows. When the internet started doing more than just being bulletin boards for people, I wrote a show for him that was called Squeeze It, which, gosh, if I should dust off some of those submissions for that, but it was a matter of using the internet for a game show. He was always, again, I think a little ahead of the curve, always innovative. And I've been with him off and on now for 50 years. And he always gave the public what they wanted from a Wink Martindale. Always kind, always courteous, always a little bit flashy, just a little peacocking a little bit on his end to get attention. And I remember how hard Fred worked when Wink got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and that was an amazing day. And you just don't, people that people that are our friends don't get stars on the Walk of Fame. And here was Wink getting one. It was just, it was fabulous. It was and well-deserved. I would say that too. And the other thing about Fred Wasbrock is once the Game Show Network premiered, he turned these has-been game show hosts into iconic stars.
I was going to say, because he was always pitching those fabulous guys. Not enough women when you think about it. Not really enough women in that world, but he was always pitching them, and it was a really hard sell. for a long time. That's why doing Game Show Week was just so thrilling for me and for Fred, that we could actually shine a light on all these people and what they meant to American television. But you know, when I was working on shows like Our Magazine, you remember Our Magazine?
Oh yeah, Gary Collins.
Yeah, going to the game show world was a little like, oh, you mean you can't get Candace Bergen? So the Game Show Network really gave a whole new career to a lot of these folks.
Well, Fred was so persistent.
Yes, he was.
And what the Suits didn't realize was how people like Wink and the guys that he worked with, they were tied to their childhood memories.
That's right.
And Wink was one of the guys who totally embraced the concept of, okay, if I'm going to be known as the game show guy, I'm going to be the game show guy. And he wasn't one of those, well, what I really want to do is Tennessee Williams plays. You know, he decided that was it. He was going to be that guy.
Right.
And they made bobbleheads that looked like Wink. He did an Orbitz travel commercial where he was a game show host doing Orbitz travel. Anytime you hear any of these shows that are making fun of game shows, they always do like
He's the guy.
a Wink something kind of name to it. So he has become synonymous with being that guy, and he embraced that. And also what was really cool too is a lot of times the people in the game show community, and yes, there is a game show community, he showed up for weddings for people and would do run-throughs for game shows for our friend Phil and Mandel. There's a group of game show people who all play music together. There's a band called The Remotes, and all they do is play cover songs from TV shows. Wink showed up to one of those. I did my book signing for my Peacock Tale Secrets of an NBC Page. I was down in Palm Desert, and Sandy and Wink came to that. And of course, the minute Wink shows up, nobody gives a crap about what I'm saying. So what I started doing is, as part of my presentation, I would say, blah, blah, blah. Now, Wink, weren't you there when we did the and then
So
Wink started talking, and he made for a really, really good book signing. So as iconic as he was one of us too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dean, you worked with him in a very unique way. Tell us about working with Wink Martindale.
Well, I grew up watching Wink Martindale. I did. And I have a radio background myself. And to me, it wasn't really the boss jocks at KHJ or KRLA. I was into KMPC, and I was into KSFO in San Francisco, Golden West Broadcasting. So my mentors, and the reason I got into the radio industry was because of Gary Owens, Wink Martindale, Jeff Edwards, Don Sherwood up in San Francisco. And I grew up in the Bay Area up there. So it was always amazing when I got the chance to work with Wink Martindale. I hadn't met him, and I'd met Gary Owens and others, but my opportunity to work with Wink Martindale was a dream come true, because I remember as a kid, I grew up and he's on the TV, you know, and in radio. It inspired me to get into it, trying to like was Randy, is that what you said, that game show hosts were picked from radio people?
Yes.
And
broadcasters, yeah, broadcasters.
It took broadcasters, and they would look for that, and that's what happened with me to doing Let's Make a Deal, which eventually turned into me doing High Rollers with Wink Martindale. And he was such a pro, and he would come out, do it, but we'd do 5 shows. You know, you take 5 shows a day on a Saturday and 5 shows on a Sunday. So they were always 2 weeks ahead. And he would just, it blow my mind. He'd, put a tie on, a jacket, different jacket, come out and let's do it again. And that always blew my mind. And the other thing that blew my mind is how good he was. He also never aged. He never did. Last week that he left us, he looked the same. Always did. And that always blew my mind because we would, we'd take 3 shows and then take a break and have lunch, dinner, or whatever, and then take the other 2 shows. And I would sit with him and we'd just talk about radio. And it was just fascinating to talk about radio with Wink Martindale because, yes, that's where he came from. Still, till we lost him, was in fact, that's what we call it now.
That's him calling to verify everything you just said.
But I'll tell you one thing that was, he was a master. He'd get out there and he'd do it, and it'd always blow my mind that he could just turn it on and be terrific. However, there was one blooper I will never forget. And it was, we were doing, I don't know, maybe the last show of the day. And it was high rollers. And it was the bonus round where you have to roll the dice. If you throw a 5 and a 2, you can take the 7 off, you can take the 2 off, or you can take the 5 off. That type of situation. And I think it was down to it was I think a 7 and a 10 was left of it. And anyway, he says at the end of it, he goes, okay. He said, all right, roll for the 7. And the contestant said, I only have 1 dice. And he goes, oh, I guess that's true. It was I can't remember exactly what numbers were up there, but it turned out that there was only 1 dice. And I can't remember why there was just 1 dice and why the game played out that way. But he just had the 1 in his hand. He goes, roll for a 7. I only got 1 dice, Wink. But he handled it beautifully, and he was remarkable.
I would like to add something to what you're saying.
Yeah,
and that is, yes, he came from radio. But the one thing that so stood out with everybody in the audience across America, across the world, was that overwhelming smile and the joy that he brought. It didn't matter if you were a guest on the show or you were a contestant or you were the janitor. It didn't matter. But that smile and that overwhelming warmth and love that you felt, you heard on radio as well as seeing it on television. He had it going for him right from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he was pictured. You look up game show host in the dictionary, and his picture's under it. And you're right. And like I said, he never aged. He always looked great. Always had that smile, perfect teeth. It's I hate him for it.
How about you, Wesley, as well? Tell us about your thoughts and your tribute to the incomparable Wink Martindale.
Well, I first came across Wink, like many of us did here when we were younger, and I knew him from Gambit, which was actually I believe it was his 6th game show. His first game show was What's This Song in 1964. And Wink said he got interested in it while he was doing his morning show on KMPC because he would watch Password in the afternoons. He was just mesmerized by the show. And then he learned that Alan Ludden was taping the show. He only had to do the show 2 days a week, like Dean mentioned, because of the schedule of just having to tape 5 shows a day. And so Wink told his manager, said, well, if that's the situation, I'd like to be on a game show. It got him hooked up with what they were doing with This Song, which was a local show on LA at the time. And then it went network on NBC. It only lasted a year. He then did, correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, I believe the order was Dream Girl of 67, How's Your Mother-in-Law, Can You Top This, Words and Music, and then came Gambit. And Gambit was the big thing that really secured him because it ran over 4 years, big hit. It came on in September 4, 1972 with Price is Right and Joker's Wild and Gambit were the three shows that have brought back game shows to CBS. CBS had not had them in daytime for 4 years. They all came on. They were all hits. And Ruda will know this. The thing about the Heater Quigley game shows, they were fast paced. They had stuff going there. So like on Gambit or High Rollers, the host like Wink would be reading something like Shreveport, Baton Rouge, New Orleans. Which one of these Louisiana cities is the cat? And then someone would ring in and they'd say Baton Rouge. He said, the capital city. That's correct, Baton Rouge. You get it there, and then, you know, have Elaine Stewart show the card, or well, they did decide if they wanted to play the game or not, and then Elaine would play the card. Or in the case of Ruda on High Rollers, Ruda would have to really roll the dice and then be told, Ruda, don't roll a 3 because the 3's been knocked out, you know, that sort of thing. And to do that and keep it moving is a testament to what Wink had as a host right there, to keep it moving beautifully. He worked great on that show. And he eventually did 20 national game shows, the most of anybody apart from Bill Cullen, who he admired as well there. And as everyone said, you just knew with Wink, you had professionalism. There was a point there where he was doing both Tic-Tac-Dough and the revival of Gambit, Las Vegas Gambit. He'd be doing Las Vegas in the afternoon and then go out and do the taping for Tic-Tac-Dough later that day in LA, which he said was stressful, but he kept it all together that way, you know. And as everyone else said, when I first met him during the Game Show Congress in the early 2000s, and he was just as gracious and friendly as you'd see him on screen. He was just one of a kind. And I think what really has impacted me and a lot of people is that Wink was so vibrant and so active right to the end that we all just thought, you know, he's going to be around forever, at least to 100. And that's what really shocked us. And I'm glad you're doing this tribute. And I'm glad you're letting me be a part of it, because he was just a legend, and he deserves all the praise he's getting right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So beautifully said. You know, Ruda, some of the things that we're talking about, the attributes of Wink, also fall to you as well. The affability, the congeniality, the warmth, the fun, the love of life, the team player that you are. You've done so much and continue to do so much.
Wow.
Matter of fact, you have a birthday coming up, and there were tickets available, and it's sold out, I think, in 5.5 minutes. Everybody wants to be there with Ruda.
And it's sold out, and I'm so pleased because we're supporting, and this is part of what Wink was wonderful about too. We're using our celebrity to raise money for good causes, and I have been, along with my best buddy Debbie Reynolds, who's left me alone to do it now, have been raising money for the Thalians. And the Thalians have always been Hollywood for mental health. However, someone came to us and said, you are missing the boat, Ruda. You're dealing with everything from pediatric through geriatric people in cures for mental illness, but you're not doing anything for our returning veterans, those beautiful young people who are willing to put their lives on the line anywhere in the hellhole we send them to. And then they come back and sometimes fall through the cracks. So we joined up with Operation Mend at UCLA. They take care of the broken and fractured bodies, and we take care of the broken and fractured mind. And so my benefit on the 30th, my 90th birthday, mind you, oh yeah, my old, is sold out. But if you're of a mind to, reach into your pocketbook or whatever and send whatever you want to the Thalians. Look us up on the tube, the Thalians, Thalians, and anything that you can give. Just remember the title of my book applies to you. Consider your ass kissed.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Hey, gang, I think we should sing happy birthday to Ruta.
Oh, please don't.
We're going to.
That's my unfavorite song in the world. In this marvelous country with the greatest songwriters in the world, all we have is that.
Yeah.
How about We Love You, Ruta?
Oh, yes, that I'll
We
take.
love
And
you,
I thank
Ruta.
you all so much.
Let's do that,
What a
gang.
joy to be
Here we
with you.
go. 3, 2,
And the
1.
only thing missing was Wink.
We love you,
Love you,
Ruta.
Ruta.
We
Well,
love
you,
you,
Ruta.
Oh, I like that
love
one.
you,
Ruta.
Oh, there's a good
We
tenor there.
love you.
Thank you, thank you.
Ruta. Ruta, how long were you and Debbie involved with the Thalians? I remember Debbie talking about it decades ago.
I have been either president or chairman of the board for about 60 years.
There you go.
And Debbie was one of the founding members. I came in about 5 years after it was founded. And it was really great because we sent out Jane Mansfield and, the pretty little blonde girl at Universal. I'm doing a blank on her name right now. But both with huge knockers, huge. And they came back after being told, find us a charity that needs our money, because we had a lot of young actors and people in allied fields, whether it was costuming or producing or agenting, who got tired of being called hard drinking, pot smoking asses who had nothing to contribute to society, and said, we hang around the piano and sing and dance. Why don't we put a show together and raise a few dollars? So they sent the girls out to Mamie Van Doren. That's who it was. Mamie Van Doren and Jane Mansfield. You want to talk about gazongas. Anyway, they came back from their meeting and they said, well, all the good diseases have been taken. So they found a man who was dealing with emotionally disturbed children. And he described those children as rotting apples in a barrel that can infect the entire barrel if they're not taken care of.
Wow.
So we founded the Thalians, built the first clinic, which was the first building at the Cedars-Sinai complex in Hollywood, and raised millions and millions of dollars by saluting wonderful stars who not only dazzled us on the screen or the stage or the small screen television, but who dazzled us with their philanthropic performances as well. And we honored everybody from Frank Sinatra through Whoopi Goldberg, through darling, well, if you name a star, we had them on the list. And they didn't have to do a damn thing but turn up and smile and say hello to their fans. And we built shows around them and we raised a lot of money. And I'm very proud of that old group, most of which is gone now, but I'm still here and I'm still begging everybody to be generous to the Thalians because we do such good work.
When Debbie told me some of the names, as you mentioned, Sinatra, and all the way up and down that list of superstars, I was just blown away, blown away. It must be such a great cause with a great reputation. Of course, a great cause, but with a great reputation for all these folks that have come out over the years.
But part of our game show group are the people now that have set the pace for everybody. And I have to say that this new generation is much tougher to get and deal with as honorees. I mean, Frank Sinatra came in and Bing Crosby and Bob Hope came in and they picked up the tabs for the orchestra and so on and so forth. It didn't matter. And now we sort of get, well, yes, I'll come, but I have to bring an entourage of about 12. So that'll be, you'll take care of that. And then we have to fly everybody in. So you'll have to take care of that. And there will be a Rolex at the end. Now that's an over-exaggeration, but that's kind of what I'm feeling from the young people who did not grow up in show business and weren't there from the beginnings and weren't the kind of people that said, boy, I have been so lucky. I have been so blessed. I have to give something back. There are a lot of young people that do, but there are a lot of young people that don't. And I'm after them.
I want to say that it boils down to gratitude, Ruta.
Yeah.
It boils down to gratitude and representation, because I introduced a series to Entertainment Tonight called Good Works, where we celebrated celebrities and the charities and philanthropies that they participated in, even with busy schedules. And when I came up with the idea, they were like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Well, it was interesting to go to Africa with Patricia Heaton for World Vision, and to go to a junior high school in the North Valley with Eva Longoria, because they don't do it for the
fame.
For the fame and for attention. They don't do it for attention. They do it from their heart. So I thought it would be a good idea to shine a light. But I know what you're saying, Ruta, because now these celebrities have bastions of representation,
Yes,
whose job it is to say not available unless Rolex watch,
yes,
airfare for 6, hair and makeup,
Mhm.
wardrobe, all of it. So it takes a lot of patience. And it's just it's kind of a different world, because Debbie and you and your wonderful colleagues, you would just understand the importance of the moment.
When you talk about patience, it took me 20 years
Yes.
to get Clint Eastwood, but I got him.
Never give up.
20 years. He was always either shooting in Africa or New York or wherever. And you know, he's kind of a shy guy and a little reticent about things. And I called him one day and I said, Clint, my birthday is coming up May 30th, and I want you to give me the birthday present of a lifetime. And finally, after all these years, say you will be our honoree. And he said, my birthday is the day after yours. How about you don't make me come, and that'll be my birthday. But he did come, and he was the most glorious honoree. He was just wonderful, and so gentle and kind and full of love. And of course, back to saluting our wonderful boy. Talk about love. I just love that he loved everybody and everything. And you know, he did have gratitude. He was spiritual. He was grateful for every good thing that came his way.
Can I mention something too, that no person at Wink's stature gets there by himself. And he was so lucky to have Sandy.
Oh my God.
Because she wasn't so sweet, just a wife. She was a partner. And I saw Wink not always in good times, but she was always there for him. And he could use her as a sounding board for ideas. If there was something that was getting under his skin a little bit, she was there to help soothe things over. She was such a team player with him. And it was never about her ego with any of this stuff. She really
and
was.
they're together, what, 40 years?
49.
49.
Woo!
49.
Wow.
And I only wish that all of us in our lives had somebody who was completely devoted and unselfish and took as much pride in their husband's work as he took in his work.
And
So
she also looked so good on his arm. They were gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Gorgeous.
And her glasses, her Wink glasses that she would wear sometimes with the rhinestones in them, she would make with the little hearts on them. And she really loved being his partner. And I just want to give a big shout out and let her know how much we all love and care about her too, because I don't think that Wink would have been as happy a man without her.
I
I'm going to
totally
jump
agree
in.
with you. Thank
If
you.
I can, let me jump in on this thought because maybe
Please.
people aren't familiar with this. Wink and Sandy are a kinship in that they both came up in the industry. Sandy's father owned nightclubs. Sandy, as a child, talking single digits now in early teens, was hanging at her dad's clubs, the Melody Room on Sunset and several others.
Oh,
She grew up in the entertainment field and understood it from its depth and all aspects. Her father ran the club. And it's an interesting story if you're not familiar with it. Elvis came into the Melody Room to talk to Sandy's father, Ferraro was the family name, and saw a picture of his daughter, Sandy, on his desk. He said, "Who is that?" She said, "Such an attractive young lady." He says, "That's my daughter." Long story short, he hounded until he could get a date with Sandy. And Sandy's mother said, "I'm going with you because she's underage." And she did. The three of them went on a chaperoned date. And eventually Elvis had won the opportunity to date her alone because he had proven himself such a gentleman. And Sandy had an ongoing relationship with Elvis that included appearing in 3 of his movies. So she is a showbiz entity unto herself. And her partnership with Wink was it was a live-in manager. It was a live-in, every part of what Wink did, she was an equal part of, as a sounding board, as you said, and an advisor, and did his wardrobe for him. Helped him with every aspect of every part of him that was public. I was been backstage with him doing 6 or 7 different television shows, and occasionally she would give him notes, the way that an agent or a manager would. Yes. And she really was a partner, as you were saying, Shelley, but she had a depth of knowledge to draw from that few people could ever have on their team. She had it all going for her.
Oh, Randy, I'm so glad you brought all this up.
He was able to accept that as well. So her background went all the way from her childhood working with stars and knew what it took to present yourself in the classic way that older entertainers, an earlier generation of entertainers did. And he relied on her for all those 3 and one more. You were mentioning earlier why Wesley, that he looked so young for all these years. I went to his home in Calabasas a few times, and he was taking vitamins and minerals and food additives and all this stuff. I said, "What are you giving him?" And she, started to name off this stuff. And I said, "Wink, what is this?" He said, "If Sandy wants me to take it, I'm taking it." And I'm like, and I once said, I said, "What is that? Shark ass extract?" And we had a laugh over that, shark ass extract. I mean, but some of this stuff was kind of, I don't know what you're taking here, but she watched out, point being in all this, she watched out for every aspect of his life, his health, his appearance, the way he carried himself, every aspect of it. And he was able to rely on, without ego, accepting her advice all the way through his entire 49 years of their marriage.
Well, God bless you. Thank you for throwing all that good stuff our way. That's wonderful.
Absolutely. I wanted to let folks know once again that they were guests on our show, and we had an epic extended conversation with Sandy and Wink, and it was really, really something quite special. And you saw we had Claudia sent along the clip with Peter Marshall, and Peter, we did a wonderful tribute to Peter Marshall that a lot of people commented about, which really touched my heart. It was something we put together real quick. Yeah, you can see that as well. And we also, some of the folks you see here joined us for the Barb Barker special we did as well. And I just want to slip in with this gang we have here of legends we had the other night, and what a delightful person she is. Denise Gautier, Dick Gautier's daughter. And she was, oh yeah, she was on just last week. And what an amazing conversation, and what love she has and respect for her father. And she loves you, Ruta. She mentioned, we grew up with Ruta Lee, and we had Joan Rivers and Phyllis Diller at the house, and all these incredible people. Because I said Ruta is going to be coming on the show, as we're going to be doing a Wink Martindale remembrance. And she says, "Oh my God, Ruta. Ruta is part of the psyche."
to Barbara Stewart, who was Miss Bunny on Gomer Pyle,
Right.
here in my house,
Right. Yeah.
which is really something.
She
And
mentioned
darling, the host of Hollywood Squares, Peter Marshall, was best man.
exactly right.
Small world. Oh boy. I always said if I failed bitterly in show business, I can do weddings in my chapel here.
Yeah, but Ruta, I just was watching Funny Face and I saw you in that Think Pink number with the cake.
Yes,
and that is one of the highlights of my life. I went to the High School of Performing Arts in Manhattan.
Oh,
and my girlfriend and I cut school to sit in Radio City Music Hall watching that movie over
How fun.
and over.
Well, the highlight for me was meeting and becoming very friendly and staying friendly with Fred Astaire.
Oh my God.
And darling, beautiful Audrey Hepburn.
And Audrey.
That I asked how in hell she stayed so thin and svelte all the time. And she said, of course, she grew up in Europe during the war and it was very tough. And then you automatically stayed thin because you didn't get food. But when she became a star and had money and could order whatever she wanted, she said she would order everything on the menu that she wanted to taste. She would take one bite and that was it. That was her secret, to order everything you want, take one bite of it, and that's it.
And that's it. Wow.
Divine.
That's incredible. Somebody else that wanted to be here, but I think he was called away. Bob Bowden is another prolific television icon, and there he is as well with Wink. And he was a guest on our show.
He has a new book out today.
He's got a new book out today as well, so I know he's immersed in that. But Bob, and this is another shot that Bob sent along as well. And he sent this along, and he also sent this. There's Bob Bowden. Bob, responsible for a lot of the television you've enjoyed over the years, folks. And
he's going to have a game show exhibit, a game show museum. Jim, what is? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's the Strong Museum of Play, which is in Rochester, New York, and they are opening a brand new game show wing. Of which many of us have contributed items and an entire archive. So some of it will be like the letterboard from Wheel of Fortune. We have that. We have the big wheel from The Price is Right. We have that. We have the Family Feud Fast Money board, which is with the the black with the yellow dots on it. I was able to get them that. And so folks who will visit this museum that already exists are going to have a whole wing of material now to see that celebrates game shows. And that'll be opening in about a year, but they're working very hard and collecting fabulous iconic pieces that will just
how wonderful.
Bob's mission.
Yeah, Bob is with Howard Blumenthal are together on that, is having organized that.
And his
just
book,
going to be wonderful.
His book that he's released today is not actually about game shows. It's more about the creative
management and creativity.
Yeah,
yes.
Fascinating.
Sorry, can't talk now.
I'm going to take it back to Wink if I can for a moment, Jim.
Absolutely.
Take control of this. There's something, I talked about Wink's, heartland of Middle America, grassroots, God-loving upbringing, which brought so much of his personality to what he brought to all of us on radio and television. But he had something else going for him, which was preparation. Now, I watched a lot of run-throughs and rehearsals for the shows that we did, and the guy would go over and over until the rules of the game and the different scenarios that might develop over the course of playing the format, he had to have that down pat. So it's not like he walked in and would want to wing things. His preparation was key to his success. And I'll bring it down to one very small detail, which is just one hint of what kind of preparation he did. If he was holding question cards from a show that Ruta remembers well, and these are actually cards from the show, in some of those programs, like High Rollers, didn't have this bonus round feature to it, but other shows did. Gambit, for example, might have had answer as many as 10 questions in 60 seconds, but all those timed rounds, he had a way of making that work. And let me show you what I learned watching him do those bonus rounds. First of all, he would lick his finger to keep from having two cards come up at once. Now, remember, the clock is ticking down. The contestant is playing against the clock. And if you're fumbling with the cards, you're stealing time from the contestant. So he did the lick and held the card. Now, if the person got it right, he would put the card in these two fingers here. There's a reason for this. Stay with me. If the contestant got it wrong, it would go to these two fingers. And if the question was passed, meaning if there was time remaining, the contestant passes, time remaining, he could ask that question again. So that would go like this. So now the clock is ticking. He's reading off questions. The right answers go here. The wrong answers go here. Let me raise this so you can see it. The right answers go here. The wrong answers go here. And the passes go here. If time remains, he can access the past questions instantly, so the contestant has a fair time to answer them again if possible. Now time is up. He can give now, with the past answers in his hand, the correct answers. The ones you passed were pantyhose, Julio Iglesias, and giraffe. Those are the answers that you passed on. And the ones you got wrong, well, that's between these two fingers. And you missed on glass eye and fresh and Humpty Dumpty in the case of these particular questions. So his just handling of the cards, which is something you'd think like, no big deal, right? But he had a way that he prepared for doing that, so it was fair to the contestants. Little things like that when I talk about preparation. He had it down to a science.
Great demonstration. Wow. I love that.
But it was important because you have a contestant. I mean, the show is about the contestants and the game. It's not about the host, of course.
Right.
And if folks at home are putting themselves empathizing with the position of, gee, I wish I were a contestant, or how would I have answered that? The play along aspect of game shows that he understood so well. So how you handled the cards was significant. Something as silly as that, because you don't want to steal the time and you want to be able to give the right answers to the ones that were missed and be able to go back to give the contestant a chance on the ones that were passed. You know, he really approached this with a great deal of thought. So it wasn't things that just happened off the top of his head. He really did study and prepare. And that's part of what made him so great.
And also, I love the idea that Tic-Tac-Dough has come back. It was a good show. It's a good formula. It isn't the same Tic-Tac-Dough without Wink.
Well,
I mean, it's
a different spirit.
It's it's a whole different vibe, but it's a solid show. Another show I had to step away for a moment. Has anybody talked about Debt?
We're showing some photos of it, but talk about that.
Because Debt was an unusual format in as much as people came on and they were a certain amount of money in debt to their credit cards.
Oh.
And the whole idea of the show was to win enough money to pay off your credit cards. And it's still a really
we wish that show still existed today.
Well,
I should bring it back.
I've been politicking for this one for a long time. I think, like so many things that we love that we can't bring back, there's a lot of lawyers involved.
Yeah.
But Wink did such an excellent job with Debt, and it should have been picked up for more shows. It's such a great concept, and it was 3 contestants and Wink, and that's all it was.
Well, it was Q&A, and it was on Lifetime originally, so it was the show for women originally, and Disney owned it, and I assume still owns the the intellectual property, as they call it now, the IP. So address your letters to Disney.
And if I can pivot off that, Wink was doing that at the same time he was doing Music of Your Life, a syndicated radio show,
right?
Which is notable. You can hear episodes of it, I think, on TuneIn Radio. They still have some of those going now.
And did anybody mention that Fred Wasbrook got Wink on the Tonight Show?
No.
Well, it's a separate conversation, but
but of his numerous accomplishments,
yes,
even though he was as accomplished in life as he was, he still wanted to be on the Tonight Show. And Fred was finding every angle that he could. Could they put him in a sketch on the show? Did he have enough, to do panel on the show? But I think it was Jolie Anseer was working on the show. And because Wink and Sandy had a lot of Chihuahua dogs, and one of the dogs could sing, and they went, "That's it. That's our segment." And if I recall right, the first time the dog didn't sing, And Fred and Wink were really upset, but that only meant that he gets a second booking to try to get the dogs to sing again. So it was a dream come true for Wink. He got the Tonight Show.
That's sweet. That's a sweet memory.
Yeah.
Well, if you went into Wink's house, they had 7 chihuahuas at one point. And I was so afraid of stepping on them because they're small and running and scurrying around. And I think I did step on one once, not harshly, of course, but and I was like, my God, I'm so apologetic. But we went from 7 down to 1, I believe, at present. But Wesley, you were talking about
music of your life. Oh,
music
yeah. The reason why is because here on the East Coast, that gave us a chance to hear his brilliance as a radio broadcaster, something we didn't get that much of because he was mainly, doing LA radio for most of the time of his career. He did a couple of syndicated shows, but none of them were as big as Music of Your Life. That lasted about 10 years. They still got repeats on it. And the big thing he did about that, he took a lot of the interviews he had recorded at KMPC and some of the other stations during the year he interviewed a lot of stars, Stephen Eady, Tony Bennett, Bette Midler, you name them. And he took the reel-to-reels and got them digitally transferred for the show. I think it took about 3 months to do that. And then he could just, basically he could record from his own home to do the show and get it set up that way. And it was a great outlet for him and to hear his excellence there on the radio as in TV.
He had a radio studio on the second floor of his home in Calabasas, and he had a library of 10.5-inch reels, these old tapes, of everybody you could think of over the years that he interviewed. He did an hour with each of them on KMPC, and they were fascinating to listen to. Wonderful. The folks that we love, the standard singers of the 50s, 60s, 70s, Patti Pages and Johnny Mathis, et cetera, and depth interviews with these people. And I just wonder what's going to happen to this priceless library of material. It really belongs somewhere, maybe the Grammy Museum or ASCAP or somebody like that, but they are quality interviews with the great names of the times.
Cullen Fields is watching. The viewers are watching all around the world are commenting. They're loving this. Because 2 of Wink's dogs were named in honor of his creation, Bumper Stumpers. One dog named Bumper and the other one Miss Stumper.
Good.
Anybody else have pets named after shows they've been involved in or anything else? Do you have
I have one named Yo-Yo. That fits everybody.
Right. Randy, do you have a Westie?
No, but I named the rooms after the television shows that bought them. See, the house I couldn't afford all unto itself unless I had contributing money in each case. So I'm sitting honorarily in the Trivial Pursuit room right now. So,
yes.
And we talked about Wink being inventive on some of these earlier thoughts. I think Shelley was talking about Bumper Stumpers and his invention. Trivial Pursuit, you're looking at right there, was the very first television show that had a interactive element to it. It was a very early in interactivity and it was no internet at the time, but there were a 900 telephone number you could call in and play along. And we would do Trivial Pursuit and stop every, I think it was 12 minutes. And it's time for a Trivial Pursuit play break. And hi, this is Wink Martindale. Come join the show right now on your telephone. Dial 900, whatever the number was. And we'll see you online. And remember, the winners of this game will have a chance to play later today for the grand prize, which is, tell them about it, Randy, a trip for 2 to Hawaii. So folks would call in several times during the day, and he'd make the pitch on air, but then you would go to your telephone, dial in, and you'd be able to answer multiple choice questions on your phone. Somebody who was somewhere in South Carolina, I think it was, Virginia, was emceeing, if you will, these over-the-phone participants. They would come up with a winner. The folks who answered the fastest with the right answer would win that play break. Then you had another play break and another play break over the course of the 3-hour block that I think we all did with Boggle, Jumble, Trivia Pursuit. We had multiple shows going. And at the end of all these play breaks, at the end of the block, there'd be each winner playing against the other winners, and the grand prize winner would win the trip or whatever. And we had a very strange system because we would have to pre-tape, Wink and I, the material for those breaks. You know, join us now. We're going to play now. Randy, what can they win? A toaster oven, a microwave, or today's grand prize, a trip to the Bahamas. And you'll stay 6 days and 2 nights, whatever. You know, so it was a game show with all the descriptions, and the folks would play. And at the end, we would end up with a winner's name, and we would announce that live into the show. I'm not sure of how the technology of all of that worked, but this was the very first interactive television game show pre-internet, and it worked and raised a lot of money because those 900 calls generated cash. And it was a unique thought. Who would ever think to do that? Wink did, along with his partner, Bill Hillier. The two of them co-created those shows and that play along concept. So just a thought about him as a producer and a creative force beyond just a talent.
Absolutely. We have a photo here that was, we showed this just a week or so ago, and we did a you know, for anybody watching for the first time, we don't just do tribute shows, but lately we've been doing a lot of wonderful ones. And I've always enjoyed watching them when they're on television, and I've always admired them. So that's something I've sort of weaved into this series, the Jim Masters Show. But we did one where because it was like within, I think, 24 hours or so, Jane North, Dennis the Menace had passed, and then the wonderful actress Elaine Ballas. And I know that there was a wonderful gathering of folks, Ruta Lee, one of them, with Jeffrey Mark and Harlan Bowl and Wink Martindale and Allison Arngrim and Sandra Martindale and everybody there. And you were doing a video sort of lifting up the spirits of Elaine Ballas, our dear friend as well. Tell us about that, Ruta. That was a beautiful thing you did, honoring wonderful Elaine.
Well, it was just wonderful to be together in a place where we could be together, which was divine. And when I take a look at this photograph, look at her, that gorgeous little bitch from House on the Prairie.
Allison.
Such a mean little
She was just with us last week.
And I love
Nellie
her
Olson.
She is so funny and so fabulous.
She's amazing.
And my God, look at that gorgeous shirt that Wink is wearing. Is he beautiful or what? And that lovely bride of his sitting next to me. And of course, a good friend of our darling PR man, Harlan Ball, who
beautiful friend Harlan. Yeah,
he's great fun to be together and to wave to somebody as wonderful. Wave a goodbye to somebody as wonderful, and kind of just keep her in our thoughts, in our sweet prayers. And look at this, we've just had Easter and an opportunity to kind of look at each other and say, wow, are we blessed to be in show business, or are we blessed, period? Either way, I just think all of us who are involved in one way or another, for better or for worse, have more laughs, more giggles, and more love come our way because we're in show business than shoe salesmen or insurance salesmen or car salesmen get. We sell what we've got, and we give away what we have a lot. We're the most charitable group I know on the face of the earth, too. We show business people. And so, Miss Ballas,
absolutely.
Make everybody up in heaven smile that you're there.
Absolutely. It used to be in the business that the only time you talk about the shoe salesman, the only time you were ever a shoe-in the industry is if your uncle owned the television station or the radio station. Then you were possibly a shoe-in.
Well, I stop and think about Wink working at KMPC. And of course, we talked about his getting a star on the Boulevard. Well, Johnny Grant was at KMPC, and Johnny Grant was the mayor of Hollywood as far as that goes, the honorary one anyway. So I imagine that that had a little bit to do with a star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood.
What would be one thing each of you would share or say that will always stay with you in reference to Wink Martindale, the person, and Wink Martindale, the legendary television, radio personality, broadcaster, singer, radio DJ, fabulous person all the way around, the man and the legend? And I'll start with you, Randy.
Well, a couple thoughts come to mind. He was totally accessible to his audience. And I don't mean you could call him up in the middle of the night, but what I mean is what you got from him was sincere, and you can't fake that. And he really did have a love and a caring for people. And I think that is what brought him across to folks at home and why he was so successful. You know, he was relatable and warm and used the medium well as an intimate medium. Most of us are alone in the car listening to the radio. We watch television for the most part with our family or solo. And he honored us with the very best that he could bring from his middle America. I'll go back to that. God-loving, God-fearing, no cynicism, no sarcasm. He was a real pure person, and his love of his fellow man came through. I'm going to take the second half of that question now. And what I remember on a personal / professional level, which was doing audience warm up for him. The very first day that we worked together of many shows that hey, welcome everybody. We're going to have a good time today. You know, and you do that rah-rah session with a live audience. It's mostly ad lib and you're playing off of people and what's happening at a particular moment. And at the end of it, because Wink has seen the best work over the years, I said to Wink at the end of the tape day, I just hope that you're happy with what I'm doing with warm up. If you have any notes or thoughts or comments, please tell me so I can incorporate what you want. This is your show. And he said, Randy, he says, I watched you with amazement because I once was hired to do warm up and I failed miserably. I didn't have the ability to interact so extemporaneously with people. And I admire you for what you do. I will never give you a note on it because I don't think you would ever run astray of what the job is. And then he said, I noticed you were asking some questions. I said, yeah, well, somebody asked me about a show. And then I asked the question back. He says, do you want to do trivia? I said, well, if it comes up, he says, next time you come in, remind me to talk to you about trivia. And I had no idea what that meant. And the next day I came in, he says, here's 100 $1 bills that I just had the associate producer go to the bank and get. They're brand new hundreds, consecutive serial numbers, crisp and all that. He says, hang on to these. And if you decide you're going to play trivia at any point, hand out dollar bills or for any other reason that you think appropriate. And if you run out of these, let me know and I'll send the AP to the bank again. I'm like, this is a guy who's got a television show that he's producing and hosting, and he's taking all that time and energy to try to bring out the best that I can do on his behalf. And that just touched me terribly. You know, it was so honest and so supportive where I could start naming names of other hosts, Dick Clark, who, wouldn't ever have been that forthcoming with their support and trust. And that was a huge thing that Wink and I bonded with from the very beginning. And all through the shows that we did, Randy, whatever you want to do is fine with me. I mean, he realized that my attitude, my tastes, and my goals were in sync with his, and I was not outside the box. So he just let me run with things. And that's the supreme compliment from a guy who had spent his whole life in the business.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. And for some people who might not know, he was born Winston Conrad Wink Martindale and Jackson, Tennessee. His mother, Frances May, was a housewife, and father was a lumber inspector and later worked for Life magazine. And he grew up in the humble circumstances in a deeply religious household. And speaking of the childhood, he was the third of 4 sons. He says there were 5 of us in our small house, my 3 brothers, my 1 sister, and I lived with our parents in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with no shower. All of the water had to be heated. We poured water into the tub to take a bath. My parents bought our groceries on credit. at Woody's grocery store. And we used to go to church every Sunday morning and evening on Wednesdays. And we went to Bible study. And we, when school was out in the summer, we attended Vacation Bible School as well. And from an early age, he had this distinctive voice as well. And the rest is history. Winston Conrad Wink Martindale. Cool stuff. And I think there was a story that friends used to, there was a nickname Winky or something. And then that's where the wink came. And they ran with that. Right? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. A friend of his, childhood friend, used to call him Winky.
Winky, right. And that's where the wink came from.
And there was one time he wasn't allowed to use the word wink. The geniuses at NBC doing What's That Song said it sounds too whatever. So they made him Win Martindale.
That's right.
That was the show there, because the NBC executives, they always know best. So he was Win for one episode. Yeah. He loved radio. If you don't mind me just going through thoughts here, he talked about listening to old time radio when he was a child. He loved the radio, and he used to rip magazine ads out of Life magazine and hold something in his hand and make believe that he was a radio announcer. He was fascinated by radio, and his first
Didn't you
job
do that too, Randy?
Yes, I did.
So did I.
We all did. Yes. And he bothered the folks at the local radio stations so many times that they finally gave him an audition and got a job at the station was upstairs in a hotel or something, and he got his first job in radio. And I said, well, what was it about the old radio shows that you loved as a child? Because this is before music radio. It was drama, those kinds of radio shows. And he said, there was a great show called Mr. District Attorney.
Oh, yes.
And I said, Mr. District Attorney, champion of the people, guardian of our fundamental rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then he said, and it shall be my duty as Mr. District Attorney not only to defend with equal vigor the rights of all its law-abiding citizens. We knew the same show opening. It's just so weird. It predated me, but it was a show he loved to listen to as a kid. I had heard it and it stuck in my mind and memorized a few lines from it. And, it was his love all the way back to his childhood, talking into a pencil, hanging around the radio station. He truly was a broadcaster at heart. And the good voice, of course, was a big part of it. But he really understood what made radio work. He understood what it was to attract an audience, keep their interest, and make it about anything but himself. You never heard Wink talk about, hi, I'm here. I'm going to have a great time today. It was all about relatability, and he had a natural understanding and gift that truly made him a fantastic broadcaster that he later brought to television.
Absolutely. Well
You
said.
know, the game show hosts and all of these wonderful men and women were American heroes of their time, because we could all hope to be like them, and we could not all be actors, and we couldn't be movie stars like Ruta. But the hosts were more like our dads in a way. Like they were like a step. My father was a musician with the Metropolitan Opera, and he went to work in a tuxedo every night. So to me, he was the handsomest, closest to a movie star, happened to be my pop. And those men who were the game show guys, they were our heroes, because we couldn't all go to the movies all the time, although I did go to the movies almost every day after school at PS 86, because my mother would meet me at the crosswalk, and then we go around the corner to the movies. So we could watch Ruta Lee in the movies. But I do think, when I think of it, that those men, they were in our lives. They were in our lives every day on TV. I do recall the first TV. I have a picture of that in my living room, a small girl standing in front of a console TV. The first one just had a little screen, and I watched 15-minute TV shows of maybe Dinah Shore, maybe Peggy Lee, maybe Tony Bennett. And they were 15-minute shows. And Mom, we all watched them, because it was, what are we doing? What do we see here in the Bronx? We see television. It's like a movie in your own living room. How could it be? And then that was your life. And then it turned into Bill Cullen on his show. And then, oh, you know what? My first game show that I remember, Abe Burrows on his, Randy, what was his show? What was the show that Abe Burrows?
What's My Line? You're thinking of
What's
him as
My Line?
There you go.
And my dream was to someday work for Abe Burrows. There was something about him and his stories about the theater, which is all I wanted to be. I wanted to be on Broadway. And I wanted to work for Abe Burrows. 100 years later, I met his daughter and I met Jimmy Burrows.
Jimmy.
And I told them, and they were weeping. Like,
Claudia, I have to tell you.
Yes, darling.
Those of us in the business that started to get a little bit of a name to where we would be a guest star on a game show.
Uh-huh.
I, for one, and I think I speak for all of us in the business, was so grateful to the game shows and the few talk shows that we were able to visit on, whether it was Carson or whoever, because people got to know us as the human beings we are, rather than the drunk that you were playing or the prostitute with a heart of gold and teeth to match. You know, whatever character you were playing, that was one thing, and you got credit for it. But it was so nice that people learned to like us or not like us, depending on how we performed on the game shows. So I feel so grateful to every game show I ever guested on, because that meant somebody in America was watching me and knowing me as me, not as a character. And so thank you.
That's just it, Ruta, is with game shows, civilians don't realize this. People like Claudia cast game shows. It's not just, who's available on Tuesday.
No.
A lot of thought goes into people because they want people who are personalities as well as good actors. And
a little bit of energy.
And a lot of energy. But I'll tell you, it was a little bit before my time when I was a page at NBC. But you were one of the first women that was a regular on a game show when you did High Rollers with Alex.
Uh-huh.
And that was something that, they say the thing, if you can see it, you can be it. And you were one of the first women that was on a continual daytime show. And I just love the way you used to throw your leg up when you would catch those. That leg up.
Do you know that I made a divine entrance wearing something absolutely gorgeous one day, and the chandelier rope broke and it came down and hit me on the head.
Oh no!
Yeah.
And so I feel, if you think I'm a little dippy, there's a reason.
So to your credit, you didn't file a suit. You didn't stop the show.
I did not file a suit, and I went on and did the show. And Alex said my eyes were kind of rolling in my head, but
you were a trooper.
And the sad part was when they brought the show back and you weren't there, but they referred to the conveyor belt that they hired. you were AI'd out of the business, but we always referred to that conveyor belt that would bring the dice back as the Ruta rug.
There you go. Well, I mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say I owe a great debt of gratitude to the game shows and the opportunities that I had to make a fool of myself, have a good time, have just whatever it took, because people got to know me. And so I'm grateful. Thank you.
Is a dependable guest.
Yep.
And that's very important for people like me, is to know that, like, if I'm putting those bodies in the boxes on Hollywood Squares, I know that if Wink is there and Peter is there and all of those wonderful people, plus we throw in a couple of comedians just for good measure, that we're going to have the ingredients for a great feast of comedy. And sometimes when you're just booking a talk show, I worked on a talk show. I'm not going to really say who it was, but not everybody is born to be a talk show host. There are people who are great talk show guests who are not great talk show hosts. But somebody like you, Ruta, you enter the room with energy because that is your job.
All right. Your job is to write me a show.
Well, I wish I could, because you're
You're a
so
very old lady.
no. Well, you know what? Yeah. But you know what? But you understand that. You know, I worked for a lot of people who understood that, especially comedians, by the way, very quiet, internal, kind of shy when they're not on TV or in the movies. But when they step out, they put on the coat of that character, and then they are that character. And they're entertaining, and they can talk. You can do an interview with Shelley and it'll be fabulous. But sometimes some of them aren't so fabulous, but they're great guests.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that even working, in television and radio too. And I'm sure Randy can concur that sometimes they've had as the co-host that day or something, somebody who is a classically trained actor who is very specific and very regimented and needs the script, needs to have the lines.
Yes.
But we're in a live studio where there's a lot of moving elements, and sometimes you're thrown out there and you have to make magic. You have to create. You have to do.
I think I may have told this when you had me on
when
the
you came
show
on. I love those moments.
when I was at the Arsenio Hall show, and we had all these great young guests. And the bosses, we call them the suits at Paramount, they would run over to me. Oh, does she have a talk show? We should sign her up and get her a talk show. I said, no, she's not a host. She tells good stories, but she's not a host. So it's a very specific knack, being a host. I always say being a host means that you're somebody's cousin, aunt, next door neighbor, fan, all of those things. And you can tell stories, but you can put yourself away and take yourself out of the conversation and just shine a light on your guest. Not everybody can do that. One host comes to mind, and just bored the life out of him.
Do tell.
No.
Do
It
tell.
just bored the life out of this person to be talking to people that was not familiar to this person, because when you're booking a talk show, not everybody, you can't get Tom Hanks every day. Sometimes you get the second lead on a soap opera, who's a very nice and smart person, but sometimes the host doesn't want to talk to them. And that's a very
mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Did you learn something from everybody?
You are top drawer.
That's
I
amazing.
just had a great birthday present.
Right? I tell you, huh?
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm sorry your show is already sold out.
You
because
can't do a second night. You can't do a second.
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
I think that if you did a second, where are you doing this one? Where are you doing
At
it?
the El Portal.
Oh,
which is a
around the corner
beautiful
from my
theater.
house. I think that if you announced that you were going to do a second night, that I'll bet you're doing it in the big theater.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
who is your music director?
Steve Smith.
Oh,
I don't know
beautiful.
if you know him, but
I will bet that if you announced that all you people who tried to get tickets and were shut out, I bet you would. It's worth a try, I think. Wouldn't you go?
I would totally go.
You all go? Yeah.
No, and not only me, but I would bring a bunch of people with
posse.
me. Yeah, of course.
You're a troublemaker. Go to your room.
You do that, or you can just come over to our house and sing for us, okay?
Okay,
I have a
that's
nice
better.
piano.
Just
Okay.
pour me one of my routinis.
Routine, yes.
That I was talking
routinis.
about that I taught Darling Wink how to make.
Oh, yes?
Yeah. They're really good.
She
They're
might have
really
been
good.
driving over to my house when you told about that part.
That's right. I'm so glad you got there, honey.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here.
Because we were overwhelmed by men on this show.
Needed more estrogen. More
Yes,
estrogen.
yes.
Yeah.
But let me throw in now while I can. The thing that stands out for me about wonderful Wink, because we do need to get back to him, is his overwhelming, exuberant smile and attitude that went with it. And as I said earlier, it didn't matter if you were the window washer or the guest star or the contestant on the show. Everybody was treated with that same loving warmth. And that must be what his beautiful Sandy fell in love with too. And so I hope that he is enchanting our maker up, if he made it through the pearly gates, and keeping everybody laughing and smiling and giggling along with him. Mwah.
Beautiful,
You.
beautiful.
Well, I think there's no doubt he's made it through the pearly gates. Wink has definitely made it into the bonus round.
How lovely.
And I think
Oh,
the
how
world
lovely.
the world's craving, some of that feeling, that vibe, watching some of the old movies and the classic game shows on the, networks, and just taking a look at some of the nostalgic TV series and shows, bringing out the old music. I think people, with all the fast, crazy unpredictability of the world as it spins faster, as everything is so technologically driven, they're looking for places to find compassion, empathy, kindness, a laugh or two, warmth, not be talked at, but talked with, be lifted, celebrated. And I think that's very important. And Wink exuded that absolutely. And I think people are craving more of this kind of thing. And I don't think it should ever go away. We're trying to keep it alive here on the Jim Master Show, that's for sure. But I just really don't, I hope it just never goes away, because I think it really touches people. It goes beyond the screen or beyond the microphone. When people feel connected to you, they feel this warmth, they feel this understanding, this compassion, that you're there to lift their day, to inform them, educate them, but make them laugh and take them away from their day-to-day doldrums of day-to-day living. And I don't think that should ever disappear, or at least I hope it doesn't. There's nothing wrong with kindness, warmth, compassion. Those are not passé. Those should not be old-fashioned. Those should be celebrated, and I think we need more of that. So, Randy, let's team up and make it happen.
All right. And here's the star of warmness and happiness, Jim Masters.
Levity. Remember levity. The audience said love and levity.
I'm going to jump right on that, because Wink did it and Ruta as well. There are a lot of folks who are consumers, of television. And when they watch TV, they're looking at happy people. If they turn around and look at their own lives, it isn't always happy and wonderful and sweet. But when they are able to be entertained, I once said to somebody, this is a crazy job. I stand in front of 300 people and waste time and tell stupid stories. And I was demeaning the whole thing that we all do. And somebody said something very wise to me, and I'm going to share it with you now, because it's applicable not only if you're working a live audience, but if you're working a television audience. There are people watching you who are ill, who are perhaps passing away soon. They have a diagnosis. Their family members are sick. They don't know where their rent check is coming from. They don't have a job. Their food is, they don't have, there's so much misery and unhappiness in this life that if we individually or collectively can bring folks out of that unhappiness for a half an hour. What would you give to be worry-free for a half an hour? You can't put a price tag on it. And folks like Wink, folks like Ruta, folks who come onto the screen or the venue, the stage, and are happy and warm and giving of themselves and make that human connection, that's a gift for folks that we don't necessarily always understand the depth to which it is of value to folks who are not having a great day. And all of us who contribute in one way or another in our own special sub part of this business, who are able to bring that energy, is a gift for so many people. And I think a lot of us take it for granted.
Absolutely. And now more than ever, people can really spot when somebody isn't real and authentic. And so there is that ability to be smooth and professional and think fast on your feet and be the entertainer, the person who is very trained and can take nothing and turn it into something. But I think the people that really succeed, like the Winks and the Rutas and everybody else, have a heart. They actually care. I mean, just some of the things Ruta talked about as far as charitable things she's been involved in, caring about others. There is that understanding that the person is a really skilled entertainer, performer, really good at, what they do, but they also love
Good
people and life, and they want to make people smile, and they want to make you feel good. And that's another element, the authenticity that exudes out of them while they're being very good and professional and smooth and everything else. And that's something I've always adhered to. I've always loved that balance of being real. Like if you see me in the supermarket in the produce aisle, the version you're seeing now is the version you're going to see. Hey, Randy. Hey, Ruda. Hey, Claudia, and everybody. That's me. Maybe it's tamped just a little because there's a light and there's, we're excited and this is fun. This is what we do. But this is generally, and I know with each of you, this is you. And I think people can spot that now more than ever, the real, authentic people. And I think it matters.
I was going to say along those lines, that's the thing that struck me about Wink. He was a genuine man. And I could tell that when I saw him at the Game Show Congress. We were honoring him, and Tom McKee, who was a big winner on Tic-Tac-Dough during its first season and amassed a lot of money. He was talking about experiences there and telling us all this thing. But you could see when he was away from doing the official duties, he and Wink were just taking it easy, appreciating each other. And I hate to say it, but I think we all know there are some types of hosts who are very nice to their contestants and players and on colleagues on screen, and then when it gets off, they wouldn't give that person the time of day.
I'll name them.
Wink did. Wink was what you saw on TV, and thankfully so. And I think that's going to be his biggest legacy, personally and professionally. That he was genuine. What you see was what you got, and what you got was a great broadcaster and a great guy.
Oh boy, you said it, Wesley. That's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if I ever shared, but I had two opportunities or very close calls with being on game shows, one as host, one as contestant. Contestant was when my college roommate and I graduated from college in New York, and we went out to California. And he tried forever to get on The Price is Right. He really wanted to be on The Price is Right. But at that time, it was like a 4.5 year wait to even get a ticket just to be in the audience. So that didn't happen. But while we were in California, before we had to beg, I had to head back to New York. He had to head up to Boston as a sports journalist. We were in the final rounds of getting on Joker's Wild with Jack Barry. And we saw what Claudia was talking about and Shelley was talking about, how they look for certain types of people and some of the things you go through. They don't necessarily just pick you out of Macy's and say you're a contestant. There's a lot of different things that they look for that enhance the viewing experience and things of that nature. And they definitely want somebody, if you win a toaster, they would love for you to do backflips because of the toaster, because the viewers love to see
couple
that.
of pilots for Bill Carruthers. You all know Bill Carruthers? Remember
Sure.
Your luck.
fellow?
Yes.
Because my folks got friendly with a couple that owned a restaurant on Larchmont called the Gingham Garden, and Bill used to eat there all the time. And I don't know, I hung out there because I wasn't working yet. And he said, you could do this. So I used to do game show pilots for him. And it was all about big energy. And that's kind of my stock in trade. But it was a lot of fun for Bill, and he was a wonderful guy, and his son was a wonderful fellow too. Young Bill, we called him Young Bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just lost him a year ago. Yeah,
just lost a year ago. So we were, and the only reason why we weren't able to continue to be contestants on the Joker's Wild is because they needed us there longer, and I had a new job starting in New York, and he had his new job starting in Boston, so we had to fly back east. The second time was involving, and I think Randy and I talked about this, the Game Show Network and Synergy Group and Sony, when GSN was relatively new and they were going across the country. And a lot of my colleagues here on the East Coast said, Jim, Game Show Network was coming to the area, and you should go and you should audition, or you should just see what happens. And they were going to various cities because they were wanting to get on cable at that time and be seen on cable outlets in those cities. So they were doing this nationwide search. I talked about it with Mark Summers when he was a guest, because Mark Summers was doing the promo for it and was actually there when they did it. So when I went, it was on a whim. I said, I love television. I love radio. I love broadcasting. I love all of this. I'm going to go just to enjoy it and see what it's about. And maybe we'll talk to some colleagues or something. And I went, and there was about 5,000 people that showed up. They drove from miles. Some were insurance salespeople, and like Ruta said, shoe salespeople, people that were doing everything that wanted to get on TV, or they dreamed of being a game show host.
They think it can't be that hard.
All right, 5,000 people.
And they're probably very rich, and they live in Hollywood, and they have big houses.
And I could just do it. Right. Exactly. I could just do it. So it was a very cool experience. So Game Show Network was there, Synergy and Sony. And the very first time that I was on, what they did is they just literally put you on an empty stage. They just wanted to see if you could talk, put two words together. They asked you some questions. Do you emote? Can you respond to them? Or do you freeze up and get scared because they're down below, the judges from Sony, Synergy, and from Game Show Network looking up at you? And they weeded people out that way. And then they had some other things when you would be called back that you had to do. And then eventually it got to the point where the 5,000 got down to 500, then 100, then 50. And I made it all the way to third, which was, I just threw it out there. I just threw it out there for the heck of it to see as people in the industry, what did they see? What can I learn from this? And they had an actual set. It was on stage. Mark Summers was there as one of the judges. And it was very cool what they did. I had the sport code and the whole thing, and they had contestants with buzzers, and they had it set where one of the buzzers wouldn't work for one of the contestants. So they wanted to see how the host would react to a situation where some of the equipment wasn't working. Are they going to freeze? Are they going to say stop tape? What do we do next? And I just rolled with it and started making, funny commentary about what was happening. And the person where the buzzer wasn't happening was responding and loved it. And the audience was laughing. And I was saying, gee, this is what I do anyway. It's natural. But I guess it's working in this scenario. And it was a fantastic experience. And didn't come in first. The young lady who came in first left the East Coast, uprooted the family, went to LA for a show pilot that they were launching, and it got canceled in 30 days. So I ended up with a beautiful letter from Game Show Network and a Sony 27-inch TV.
Oh, well, you
fabulous.
Good.
But that was my run-in with game shows, either as a contestant with Joe Goes Wild or possible nationwide search host for a show that they were piloting. It was
You were Wink for the day. You were a Wink of the day.
Wink for the day.
But the difference is, Jim, did you give up after that? Did you give up then?
No, not at all.
Because the job is the auditioning. If you can get through the auditioning, that's your job. Doing the hosting or being an actor, I think you can do that. It's getting the job. That's the job.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the job part of it.
But it's not giving up. I have people in my family that are successful artists, and and she says, I would do this even if no one would pay me. When Barbara Streisand auditioned for her first Broadway show, and the casting director said, "Thank you, next," she turned around and she said, "You'll be sorry."
Oh.
Because she knew that was her mission. That was her goal. And the same for you. If you wanted this badly enough, you have to do it more than breathing. Am I right, Ruta? If you
That's
want to be an
You're
actor,
absolutely right.
or my worst job that I ever had in production was a casting director. I'm not a casting director because all I wanted to do was tell these young people, if there's anything else you can figure out to do with your life, not acting, that's not your career. But if you want it more than breathing, then keep at it until you are successful. Because it's not weak of heart.
Yes, because I've interviewed a lot of actors, iconic as well as up and coming. And that's a question I'll ask. And they'll say, well, let me tell you, having done this for 50 years, to anybody who's watching, who's thinking about going into these industries, if you are 50% into becoming an entertainer or an actor or what have you, and the other 50%, you might want to be an accountant. Be the accountant, because you need to be completely 100% in to have any traction and anything happen, which is so very, very true. Yeah. And by the way,
and also, Jim,
Yeah.
much like you, Wink paid his dues. He didn't just, get off the
He didn't just
Greyhound.
show up.
Yeah, he didn't get off the Greyhound bus and get handed a game show.
Oh, sure.
And
Right.
that's what a lot of people have to do too. He was hosting, live television, dance parties, doing radio, listening and learning.
Right.
And bring it back again. Let's bring it back to Wink and why we're honoring him today. Because if people really do want to aspire to be like Wink, they need to know that it wasn't all just big teeth and hair.
Right.
There was a lot of work that went on behind the scenes doing that. And like I said, he had a good support system with Sandy, and they were a team. And I think a lot of people have to realize that they just can't go into this as being lone wolves and thinking that's going to get handed to them. They have to pay their dues.
Yeah. And along with that, I would just note that Tic-Tac-Dough, he had to audition for Tic-Tac-Dough, even though he'd had already a varied career. He got the job because what we've mentioned before, he prepared for it. He learned the rules. He did it better than anyone else. And that show really cemented his status, I'd say, as being a broadcasting.
Yeah. And also, Wink worked for a variety of game show producers. He wasn't just like, okay, if you work for Mark Goodson, you can't work for this person, you can't work for that person. He really did, and produced his own things too. But he wasn't somebody that was pigeonholed that way. He got a lot of he worked at getting a lot of good opportunities.
Yeah, because he had to work.
Yeah, he worked.
Prepared and studied and worked and rehearsed, and it just doesn't fall into your lap.
Exactly right. Just wanted to make mention, Claudia was mentioning the extraordinarily talented family that she has growing up in New York. Absolutely. For anybody watching who does not know, and she is a phenomenal talent, and she is a spectacular person. And we've had epic conversations on this show about life, about this, about that.
I didn't pay him a lot to say that. I did.
Claudia's sister happens to be the one and only Melissa Manchester.
Yes, my sister.
The wonderful Melissa
She's in her
Manchester.
50th year as an artist, and she just got off the road where she played Mrs. Rose Bryce in the first national tour of Funny Girl, the first authentic national tour of a show that opened, that I sat in the last row of the Winter Garden Theater for the first preview of Funny Girl with Barbra Streisand. And now they just closed the run. It was 17 months and it was fantastic. But yes, that's my heritage.
And Claudia herself told me, again with my NBC background, that she was on the Tonight Show and she sang backup for Melissa.
I did.
Yeah,
I did. But I also told her that we weren't on camera because they wouldn't pay us. It's a different rate if they only hear the voice or the background vocals. But I know
Claudia, Melissa was one of our guest
honorees
stars for the Thalians.
I remember that.
She was the guest performer.
I do.
And that was quite wonderful. So She fits into my life too.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely.
And I'll jump in and give you, Claudia, credit again
Goodness.
for, I'll never forget the day I came into this big conference room with beige walls and beige carpet. Everything was beige. And there's you and Ron Ziskin. And tell us why you think you can do the announce and warm up on our magazine. And I had an answer for you. And I didn't know how well it was going over. And then Ron, I said how I had learned the business watching all the great announcers at NBC, 30 Rock. And I used to hang out there all the time. And Ron said, well, I was a page at NBC, 30 Rock. And I said, well, then you probably threw me out of the place. And Claudia laughed. And I knew at that moment I had you.
And you had big shoes to fill because the warm-up guy that was there when I joined the show in 1987 was Mark Summers. Who had just gotten a little show called Double Dare, and he was traveling across the country every weekend to go to Philly to shoot Double Dare until we finally said, Mark, you don't need to do that anymore. You're going to be a big star. You don't need to warm up this show. And so he went to Philly and, you know, his career unfolded before him. He's still one of my sweetest friends. And Randy got a great opportunity. So off to the races.
You put me together with Mark across the hall and the same lot, I think, for Couch Potatoes.
Yes, that was the day that this is really not about me, but it's just funny. But someday I'll write a book and I'll put all these things in the book. But our magazine was canceled suddenly on a Thursday, the same day as our Christmas party. Oh. And on Friday, one of the suits said, okay, Claudia, don't worry. And this was the beginning of my career in production. And she said, don't worry. On Monday, just go downstairs across the hall and there's a new show. It's called Couch Potatoes and you're going to work there. So I didn't know that that's how you get jobs. But this angel of mine who's still in my life, that's exactly what she said. Just go downstairs and across the hall, and that's a new show. It's called Couch Potatoes. They'll have all those people from TV. And by the way, I did book Jay North on Couch Potatoes. So that was all those people. And Jimmy Walker, who when he got to the studio said, oh no, Claudia, I don't say dynamite. Yeah.
Not without a little bit of
But anyway, yes. So I'm glad that I'm part of Randy's career.
Thank you for that. It was a great day for me.
Mark Summers at one time was neighbors with Wink in Calabasas.
In Calabasas, yes.
So that's again small world, 6 degrees of separation.
Yes, still one of my dearest, sweetest. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Claudia, of course, long time with Entertainment Tonight and also booked guests with our Arsenio Hall show too, right?
I did. Yes.
Yeah, you've done so much.
That was a really good time. That should have been still on, but unfortunately, young people are fickle audiences and they get bored easily. So 5 years was as much as they could hang in. And then when we came back in 2013, they didn't come.
Right.
They didn't watch the show.
Yeah.
So
it's a TikTok world. Everyone's got a 15-second attention span.
It does. It does. But you know what? We get good stories out of it. Ruta, don't you have great stories for your life?
Oh, you bet.
I know. My sister and I think we're going to invite you over to the house so that you can just tell us your stories.
Okay, is tomorrow too soon, like I am wont to say?
Yeah. We'll just be quiet and you can tell us about Kate Thompson and being in the room with her and Fred and Autry and what was that like to do Think Pink, because it gives me the chills. Because
you know, the only thing I can say about all of it is that you're young and dumb and stupid and you think it's going to go on forever just like that. And then you look back and say, oh dear God, thank you. I was so blessed and so lucky. And it was wonderful. But again, did I keep the wonderful notes that Fred Astaire used to send me every time he saw me on television somewhere? No. Stupid and young. Oh, well, I had a good time.
That's the bottom line, right?
You still give us a good time, Rudy.
Yes, indeed. And you know, thanks to TCM, it's on TV often enough that we can get our little funny face fix.
Yes.
And see you all and
thank you.
Imagine what that was like. You know, I was just watching Easter Parade yesterday with Fred and Judy because you have to watch it on Easter.
Oh, of course you do. Of course you do.
And those are blessings that you have for us forever.
Well, I was working on the movie, and I was also doing a show for the San Bernardino Civic Light Opera. Now, in those days, we didn't have the freeway going all the way into San Bernardino. It was surface streets. And so it was an hour and a half drive on a good day to get to San Bernardino. And I'm on the set, and for some reason, our director was insisting on more takes on something and more takes and more takes. And it's now past 6 o'clock, and showtime is 8 o'clock in San Bernardino, and it's an hour and a half away. And finally, at about 6:15 or 6:30, he says, all right, cut, and we'll go. The lovely people at the San Bernardino Civic Light Opera arranged for the highway patrol to pick me up at the San Bernardino County line. And I went flying in with police escort, tears running down my face. How am I ever going to make it? I'm not going to make it for my opening number. I'm not going to be able to do anything. And I got there and got pushed in. God knows what I had left for a face, because I had my show business funny face on. And we did the show, and I thought, never, ever, ever will I forget the panic of trying to make an opening night when the first number was about to hit the music, and there I am shaking to death. Show business can be hell, never mind the fun that it is. But that was part of it, and boy, did I learn a lot that night. And I told Fred about it the next day, and he just sort of sat there and went, oh my goodness, dear, because he likes to be so prepared for everything. God love him. Anyway, I never wish that on anybody. When you want to be in a show, be in it, be prepared. It's hard to be prepared when you're behind a police car that's driving you into the theater. It was fine though.
I always loved the way you end it all. This, but I loved every minute of it. We went through caves.
As much as I'm loving every
but I
minute
loved
now,
it.
it's time for me to leave.
Yes.
Does anybody else have to go? Am I the only one?
No. This has just been an
Do I dare leave you girls, or are you going to talk about me when I'm gone?
No.
Never.
Well,
only good things. Only good things.
This is all, of course, in celebration of.
It sure is.
And each one of you have been on the show before, as well as the only person that hasn't was Dean Goss, and we appreciate him being here. And of course, Roger Neal's been here as well, and Bob Bowden wanted to be here, and Ernie DeMassa, another iconic figure in the industry as well. You are all fabulous people to hop on something that I wanted to put together quickly to celebrate and honor somebody in our industry who is, a legend, yes, but also, as you have shared, a real person with a heart and a soul, and somebody who really loved the industry and knew how to do it and make it happen, and put smiles on people's faces along the way, and hand out some big money here and there too.
Well, Randy, you taught him what a warm-up is about. Hopefully he's up there warming up God and everybody that's up there for our arrival. Not just yet, but
not yet, but yes. Amen.
We'll do a little quick round robin, and we'll just have each one of you say something that you'd like to share about Wink or anything else, and then we'll wrap it up. And Wesley, what would you like to share about being on the show with all of us today, or anything else, my friend?
I'm just honored to be here. It's good to see some old friends. shall we say, matured friends I've known for a while, I should say, thank you for letting me be part of this. It's a great tribute, as always, to that you've got organized here. And I appreciated every minute of it. Just thank you for letting me be part of it.
Pleasure is all mine as well. And Randy?
My goodness, another opportunity that Wink gave to me is to have the opportunity to be with you guys today and share these good times. It's Wink would have loved the idea, not necessarily only that we were talking about him, but I think he would have enjoyed eavesdropping, if you will, because he became the catalyst for us being together today. And I'm so appreciative of you thinking of me to include me in this, and appreciative to Wink, because he gave me a lot of good breaks and was a gentleman with me when I was still learning the ropes. And I'm sure that I made a mistake or two along the way. He never pointed them out to me, but I'm sure at that stage of my career that I had more to learn, and he was very supportive through it all.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to have you here, my friend. And Claudia and Shelley, the tag team, what would you like to share?
I just think that you're really excellent at this. And I think it's not easy to have a lot of people with stories to share. It's a pleasure to remind myself and remind all of you about our wonderful game show week with Winker and Peter and Jim and Bob and Chuck and all of those, and Brett and Charles Nelson Riley, because doing it was one of the joys of my long career, doing this, putting bodies on talk show couches and in the boxes. And Wink was at the top of his field, and he will go to heaven and he will be greeted by all of those wonderful men and women who preceded him, and they will have laughs and prizes.
What I'd like to say is I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like to honor Wink in some way. And I think the best way we can do all of that is just maybe sometime tomorrow, just do a random act of kindness for someone and just maybe give it a wink. And I think that's something he'd really like us all to do.
Yes. Maybe every day.
That's every day. That's beautiful. I love that. It's so great to have you guys with us as well, as always. And Ruta, what would you like to say and share as well, my friend?
I will say that he was and continues, I imagine, to be a very spiritual man. And so thanks to Wink, God works in mysterious ways. And I now have all of my compatriots on the screens today in my life. And I welcome you, and I thank you, and I thank Wink for arranging it.
A blessing for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy and Wesley and Claudia and Shelley and Ernie and Bob and Dean and everybody that wanted to be here, and Glenn Scarpelli earlier with his wonderful video tribute. And you're all fabulous people to me and wonderful friends through this format we've created here. You're all welcome back. I always say we'll keep the porch light on for you. So the porch light is on. And once again, we love Ruta, and happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ruta.
God bless. Mwah.
God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Ruta. You be well.
Hi,
And
Jim.
Randy, thank you as well. And Wesley, thank you. And you guys too. I love that. Yes.
We're going to take the show on the road.
Absolutely.
Take the show on the road. We love you guys. You take care, okay?
You
Thanks
too,
for being
Jim.
with us.
Thanks for doing this, Jim.
Oh, my pleasure. And thanks for being a part of it. You take care. What a great gang of fabulously talented people. And you got a chance to learn a little bit more about them here on the Jim Masters Show series as we celebrated. And they all had their unique touches, their unique heartfelt tributes and stories about Wink Martindale, the person, Wink Martindale, the legendary figure on your television screens or on your radio, or of course, other areas of life as well. And really, this was something quite special. And, we've been putting these tribute specials together as part of the Jim Masters Show, Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series. And I've been enjoying doing them, bringing people together, because I know you're watching and you're listening and you are feeling what we're feeling. Some of us may have worked with these folks we're talking about and we're doing tributes to. Some may have had, maybe a glancing glow. Maybe we admired and revered them, whatever it may be. All of us coming together to share these amazing stories, and each guest that came on this show had so many wonderful things to say about this gentleman on your screen, Winston Conrad Wink Martindale. He left an indelible mark in our lives, and you can see again all of the shows, on the nostalgic networks as well. He might not be here, but he is in spirit, and we do send our love to Sandra and the entire family. And as I mentioned, both were guests not that long ago on our show, and the conversation, kind of like this one now with all of these fabulous folks, was really something very, very special, and it was really terrific. So our love to those two lovebirds there, and really just a beautiful, touching, heartfelt tribute with some really skilled, talented professionals in the industry who have made a lot of great, great magic. Ruta Lee, of course, as well, and amazing people. I enjoyed it, and I'm the host, and I loved it, and it was a pleasure. And I hope you guys did as well. If you did, well, a little homework for you. You know how the algorithm works, right? Give it a like, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, where there are something like 1,300 episodes of this series. And at the time of the show today, we are coming up on 5 years. This was something I started on the side during the pandemic. Just threw it together and started talking to camera and talking to people. And all of a sudden, guests wanted to come on, and the rest is history. Those of you who are subscribed and supporters of our series, thanks so much. We really appreciate that. If this was your first time watching and you enjoyed it, we're going to keep the porch light on for you as well. We thank you for being here as well. Thank you to all of the amazing guests who've joined us as we put this together. They're all troopers. You know why? Because this was put together like 2 days ago. Same thing with Jay North, Elaine Ballas, and Bob Barker, and Cindy Williams, and some of the other amazing tributes we've done. Something happens, and then they put it together real quick, and these folks wanted to be a part of it. They enjoy what we're doing here, but they also wanted to share their thoughts and memories. And I'm so glad that they joined us as we did celebrate and remember Wink Martindale. We hope you enjoyed it. Share this episode with folks that might not be watching right now, but they'll be able to see it in the archives. We love having you do that. Thanks to all these great comments as well. And Cullen Fields, who's been commenting throughout, who's a big game show fan, says you knocked it out of the park. Thank you very much. Bob Barker, too. Peter Marshall. We did a wonderful special honoring Peter Marshall. And if you didn't see that, we did one on Quincy Jones. And then we have our everyday shows with our fabulous guests as well. Thank you very much. And we did it with Wink, and Takes a Village. All these amazing guests who've been with us before. I think Dean was the only one who hasn't, and he was terrific too. Thank you to Cullen Fields, and thank you to Kathleen in New York City watching, and Maureen in Arizona. You all did Wink proud with this wonderful tribute. He truly was an incredible human. Thank you all for being in Levity Hall, as we call it, Love and Levity. God bless. Thank you very much as well. And wonderful guests. I concur. You got it. It's a wonderful tribute. My pleasure. And the guests, thank you as well. They were spectacular. Good stuff. And Cullen Field says we need more levity. Yeah, the world does need more levity. So come back and see us, and we've got some waiting for you. Wink. Oh, this is nice. Wink is smiling from heaven. Yes, I would imagine. And yeah, and I'm sure Sandy will be seeing this as well. I let her know we were doing it, and She gave it a good thumbs up. Same thing with Peter Marshall's lovely wife as well. She got a chance to hear about and see the Peter Marshall special. That touches me, because they know these incredible folks intimately, and for them to share those words, we really appreciate that. So with that said, I am your host, Jim Masters. Come see us again. Don't forget to love one another, take care of one another, and do not forget to do the very same for yourself, right? It's important to do that. We'll see you on the next episode. We'll keep the lights on here for you at the Jim Masters Show. We love you all. Thanks for your time this time. Till next time, right here on the Jim Masters Show. You be well, and thanks for watching. Cheers.